that tourism has, specifically for the great apes, is that because we are all great apes, humans are great apes,
yes.
just like the gorillas and chimps, and we share 98.4% genetic material with the gorillas, and we can easily make them sick. So from the very beginning, when gorilla tourism began, the greatest threat to gorillas became disease, from tourists who get close to them and can cough on them and give them a flu or a fatal disease like COVID-19. And so that has been a big concern. And now, since the pandemic began, everyone has to put on masks. And because you don't even know if you have COVID or not. But even during the pandemic, the gorillas in Virungas, which is a higher altitude than Windy, had much less flu, respiratory disease, because people were wearing masks anyway. So we've all realized it's very beneficial, and for the gorillas to remain forever. And as you saw, when you visit the gorillas, you get really close. Yes, there's a 10-meter rule, but sometimes people break the rules, but sometimes the gorillas break the rules. And so as long as people are wearing masks, at least you're reducing the risk of respiratory disease spread to the gorillas.
And I suppose from the gorillas as well to people, can things spread as well?
Yes, things can spread. Except it's much easier for us to go to the doctor than for the gorillas to go to the doctor.
Absolutely.
So, and there are much fewer of them than us.
Well, they have you now. I wonder, it's been 28, almost 30 years of doing this work. What are the challenges that you still face today, despite everything else you've been able to solve?
Wow. The challenges to continue. I've been working with gorillas for 30 years now. And it's amazing working with the gorillas, more than half my life. I would say that the challenges remain. Before gorilla tourism began, the biggest challenge was habitat loss. Then when tourism began and gorillas could get close to people so people can pay money, the biggest threat became disease, which is the reason why we set up conservation through public health, the main reason. But now we're having another challenge.
I'm just doing a
test.
1, 2, 3, test.
Because as the numbers of mountain gorillas are growing,
test.
They need more
lovely,
space.
Lovely.
They need more space.
Yeah.
They need more space, and there's more and more human-wildlife conflict because they actually need a larger place to range. As the groups split and the numbers grow, they need more space. But remember, people have cultivated right up to the edge, and now there are lodges. With the tourism growing, the number of lodges are growing, and the gorillas are going to be locked in. So our biggest challenge now is, one of the biggest challenges we have right now, if we're going to ensure that the numbers of mountain gorillas grow beyond 1,000, is to increase the protected habitat for the mountain gorillas. So we've spoken to some landowners, a number of them, and they want to sell their land. Over 200, close to 300 landowners want to sell their land, and we're raising money to be able to expand the protected habitat for the gorillas so that the numbers keep growing. If there aren't enough gorillas, then everybody's going to lose out.
But for you as an individual, how does it make you feel seeing all this work? How does that feel for you?
I'm seeing all this work. I'm really proud and fulfilled that I've helped to make a difference to the survival of the mountain gorillas, helped to bring them one step away from extinction, and I've helped to uplift the communities bordering the park. And so I just feel I want to keep going. There's still a lot more to be done. We want to scale up to other places beyond Uganda, to other countries that have gorillas, to other protected areas, to get our One Health approach going in other places, working with local partners. I still feel there's a lot to be done, but I'm very proud about what I've been able to accomplish so far.
Thank you for listening to the interview. You'll find more in-depth conversations on the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the UN, plus many others. Until next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was...
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in today for Marcy Marcusa. Good to be with you, and happy Friday. Let's say hello to the crew helping put together today's show. Sierra Sanders is our studio director. She is keeping an eye on your commute as well. Darren Morash is our YouTube producer, and Abby Adiemi is our studio technician and keeping an eye on your weather, where there's a lot going on this morning, particularly up north. We do have a number of warnings, orange level warnings, including some winter storm warnings, a freezing rain warning, and a blizzard warning for different regions up north. We're going to get to the details of that right away here. But first, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, communities along the Fisher River continue to hold their breath. The river is expected to crest today in Peguas First Nation. Sandbagging and other flood protection measures have been ongoing for the past 2 weeks now. The chief, Stan Bird, says people in Peguas seem confident about their preparations. Downriver in Fisher River Cree Nation, Chief David Crate says things there also look good. So we'll hear from both of them coming up. As well, a woman who fatally stabbed a 19-year-old after an argument in her Winnipeg home has been sentenced to 6 years. We'll hear what happened in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News Desk. Let's get to that blizzard warning. So Lynn Lake, Leaf Rapid, Puckatawagan, Brochet, Tulu Lake, Gillam, Shamattawa, all under that orange level blizzard warning, which could mean as much as 50 centimeters of snow by the time that system has moved through. It's going to go today and ending by the evening. 30 to 50 centimeters of snow expected. We'll get some more details on that later. Also, there's a winter storm warning for Flin Flon, Cranberry, and Snow Lake. Do look out for that. You might get 5 to 15 centimeters of mixture of snow and freezing rain by the end of Saturday afternoon, and also freezing rain warning, orange level for Thompson, Nelson House, Split Lake, Norway House, Cross Lake, Woboden, Island Lake, Oxford House, and God's Lake. You can expect about 5 millimeters or so of rain. It should end by the end of the day today. Lots to coming up on here on Information Radio, especially an interview about a photographer on Chernobyl. That's coming up after World Report.
On cue.
Peace and love, peace and love.
Now that he's in his 80s, Ringo Starr is starting to look back. In a rare conversation, he'll tell you about getting the call to join the Beatles, how he almost moved to Texas right before that, getting his first ever drum set, and his new album, all about his deep love of country music. Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Israel and Lebanon agree to extend their ceasefire, but the peace remains incredibly fragile. Following a high-stakes meeting in Washington yesterday, U.S. President Donald Trump announced the pause will hold for another 3 weeks. While the president is expressing confidence that a permanent deal is within reach, the reality on the ground is a different story. The CBC's Chris Brown reports from Lebanon.
From northern Israel, photographers can see the IDF bombs hitting Lebanese villages across the border in what Israel calls its new security zone. The agreement to extend the ceasefire for 3 weeks doesn't mean peace, only that the area of combat in Lebanon has supposedly shrunk to this southern area. At least 7 people in Lebanon, including a prominent journalist, have been killed in the past 48 hours, and Hezbollah has also fired into Israel for the first time since the ceasefire. Ignoring all that, Donald Trump nonetheless predicted everything will work out.
I think there's a very good chance of having peace. I think it should be an easy one relative to some of the things we're working on.
The Lebanese government is meant to ensure Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militant group, abides by the ceasefire. But in the southern Shia communities, there's little faith Lebanon's government has their best interests. There's no word that Israel has accepted key demands from Lebanon to stop demolishing villages and to pull back across the border. Trump didn't mention that either, and instead pushed a potential meeting between Lebanon's president and Israel's prime minister.
I think we'll do it during this period of time, during the 3-week period, ideally.
Lebanon appears to be slow-walking that. It's hard to see President Joseph Aoun shaking hands with an Israeli leader who occupies dozens of communities in his country. Chris Brown, CBC News, Beirut.
A U.S. Special Forces soldier who helped capture Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro is now facing a different kind of fight in court. Ken Van Dyke was a key player in the January raid, but federal prosecutors say he used his insider knowledge to turn a profit. In late December, Van Dyke allegedly made hundreds of thousands of dollars after wagering on a betting website, gambling that Maduro would soon be removed from power. President Donald Trump is already weighing in, comparing the scandal to a famous baseball controversy from the 1980s.
That's like Pete Rose betting on his own team. It's a little like Pete Rose. Pete Rose, they kept him out of the Hall of Fame because he bet on his own team. Now, if he bet against his team, that would be no good, but he bet on his own team. I'll look into it.
Van Dyke could face up to 60 years in prison if convicted. Canada's top military commander is in Kyiv this morning, offering a message of reassurance to Ukraine as the NATO alliance faces internal pressure. The chief of the defense staff is attending the Kyiv Security Forum amid ongoing criticism of the alliance from the Trump administration. While political disagreements continue to make headlines, the commander says they are simply part of the democratic process and military cooperation remains firm. Murray Brewster has the story.
NATO unity is absolutely strong.
Canada's Chief of the Defence Staff, General Jenny Carignan, thrust into the role of diplomat. Politically, it's been a tough year for NATO. First, U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to annex Greenland from ally Denmark. Now, Trump's rage over NATO's refusal to join the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. Behind the scenes, European allies are reportedly quietly exploring a fallback plan in case Washington steps back from NATO. And watching all of this, the Ukrainians, who've pinned their security hopes on joining NATO for years. Meanwhile, Canada's training mission for Ukrainian forces is evolving.
What we have done recently is focus our efforts toward training trainers.
Many Ukrainian commanders have made it clear, after 4 years of war with Russia, their soldiers have way more battlefield experience than allies. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ontario's coroner is investigating the death of an 11-month-old Cree boy at a hospital in the province's far north. The family claims he would still be alive today if his remote community had better access to emergency health care. Kate Rutherford reports.
I'm trying to comfort him, and at the same time, I'm really mad that we're just sitting here and there's nobody coming to look at us.
When Kelly Kustachin took her baby Jake to the Fort Albany Hospital on April 9th, there was no doctor. The small facility in the Cree First Nation was served virtually by a doctor more than 100 kilometers away. Kustachin says nurses checked her feverish child and they settled in to wait for the doctor's call. She says her child became inconsolable in the following hours and she begged the nurses to call the doctor but was told to wait. She became frantic when she saw a rash appear on her baby's body.
And my son is just deteriorating before my very eyes.
The call from the doctor came 4 hours after they arrived, and while on the phone, Kustachin saw nurses rush her baby to the trauma room. She says Jake was gone 20 minutes later. In the days following Jake's death, the family publicly announced the cause was meningitis, but wouldn't confirm that in an interview with CBC News. Community and political support has been pouring out on social media. Fort Albany's former chief, Elizabeth Kataquapit, says every community along James Bay should have a doctor on site.
Like every hospital, but we don't have that right now, which is bad.
There are calls for an inquest. The Winnebago Area Health Authority, which oversees healthcare in the region, did not respond to calls and emails from CBC. Kate Rutherford, CBC News, Sudbury.
Today's high energy prices are hitting Canada's north especially hard, where the cost of diesel often dictates the price of just about everything else. Following a winter that saw the Yukon's grid stretch to its breaking point, the territorial government is looking for a more permanent solution and is now turning to Ontario for help, signing a new deal to explore the use of small, modular nuclear reactors. Katrin Pelkington has that story from Whitehorse.
Compared to standard nuclear facilities, Ontario Energy Minister Stephen Lecce says these new reactors will have a smaller footprint.
I would say they are about the size of a community center.
The idea is they could be shipped to locations in need of power, places like the Yukon. This week, the territory's Energy Minister, Ted Laking, signed an agreement with Ontario to look at bringing small modular reactors to the north.
The needs are actually going to get more urgent for us, and so we need to start coming up with solutions.
In December, a prolonged cold snap stretched the territory's energy capacity to its breaking point and threatened to leave thousands of people without heat in 40 below. Just one reactor could triple the Yukon's generating capacity and help lessen its dependence on diesel. The catch, they're not ready just yet. McMaster University professor Stephen Veldhuis is one of a number of researchers working on this technology. He says the reactors need to withstand Canada's extreme temperatures.
It could be made in an environment where it's 30 degrees Celsius, and then it might sit out in the environment, and it could experience minus 40 degrees.
But Veldhuis says they're close.
And there's a lot of momentum on nuclear.
Ottawa has invested billions in the project, and it's seen interest from a number of other provinces. Ontario's Minister Lecce says the first small modular reactor could be operational by 2030. Katrin Pilkington, CBC News, Whitehorse.
And finally, a climate conference in Colombia is tackling a topic that many United Nations summits have avoided. Delegates from dozens of nations, including Canada, are meeting in Santa Marta to discuss a total move away from fossil fuels. While official UN talks often stall over specific wording, this group is looking for a more direct path to phase out oil and gas. Science reporter Anand Ram explains.
The seaside city of Santa Marta, Colombia. Breezy beaches filled with tourists in the shadow of beautiful mountains. Idyllic, not really where you'd want to discuss the most serious threat to the planet. But it's here for the first time discussions about climate change will center on its root cause, fossil fuels. And the hope is to not be like the United Nations climate conferences.
That process is a consensus-based process. So 190 countries have to agree on every word.
Zephyra Berman is the founder of the Fossil Fuel Treaty Initiative, a coalition of groups focused on getting nations off oil and gas. Thing is, not every nation wants that.
For decades, Saudi Arabia and other countries have ensured that there is no substantive conversation on fossil fuel phase-out.
There is no mitigation if we cannot discuss.
But last year, frustrations pushed some countries to want to meet again for concrete ideas to move away from fossil fuels.
It's not a debate whether to phase out fossil fuels, but really about how and how to do it together.
Nikki Reich is with the Center for International Environmental Law and is in Santa Marta. She sees a role for oil and gas at this table, including Canada, the largest attendee.
It's in their interest to reduce continued reliance on fossil fuels going forward.
The outcome next week won't be a negotiated treaty, but to get the bold ideas discussed at this important side chat into the main conversation later this year at COP31. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, coming up this hour on the show, the Northern Super League's second season kicks off tonight. We're going to talk all things women's pro soccer with the league president, Christina Litz, who is a Winnipegger. We're also going to talk with her about if or when a team could expand right here in Manitoba. That's coming up later this hour. Also, how control of one crucial waterway is being felt around the world. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Strait of Hormuz as a shipping route and the economic impact that blockade is having right now. But first on the show, a super fascinating conversation we're going to have. 40 years ago this Sunday, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded, leading to the evacuation of the Soviet city of Pripyat and the surrounding area. We're going to have a Winnipeg photographer on who has used his camera to document changes to the region over the past 4 decades. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see some of those pictures and those changes. So stay tuned for that. Right now, though, 6:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, the waiting game continues for communities along the Fisher River. That river is expected to crest today in Peguis First Nation. Flood preparations there have been ongoing for the past 2 weeks. Chief Stan Bird says there is a sense of confidence knowing a lot of homes are protected. Meanwhile, at Fisher River Cree Nation, Chief David Crate says things there are also looking good. So we'll hear more coming up. And some Manitoba municipalities want a better deal when it comes to policing costs. Reeves and mayors at the Association of Manitoba Municipalities Convention in Brandon are calling for a better contract for RCMP services. We'll hear all about it coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Well, we have a number, even though it's 2 degrees right now in Winnipeg, but up north, lots going on, Abby, in terms of weather warnings. So you're going to walk us through that.
That's true, Curry. That divide still exists where we're seeing this powerful low-pressure system sweeping through most of the region, leaving behind these westerly winds and cool Arctic air. Looking at the south, we will see mostly cloudy skies and temperatures just above that freezing point, while for the central part into the western areas, we're dealing with sub-zero readings and gusty winds, creating that sharp chill you'd notice as you travel north. Hence, that orange level winter storm warning we have active for Flin Flon towards Cranberry area, and towards Snow Lake. We are seeing that that storm move through the northern region. We're expecting this dangerous mix of freezing rain followed by maybe 14 to 15 centimeters of snow ending Saturday afternoon. And this system is likely going to be impacting your commute on the road, and some areas might even notice power outages. So be prepared for this major disruption. While we have the orange level freezing rain warning also for Thompson towards Island Lake this morning, as we see ice build up. Possible it might even get to about 5 millimeters before switching to snow later today. So we are going to be dealing with more like a severe blizzard conditions in that part of the province as it moves towards Lynn Lake, Gillam, and Tudula Lake this morning, where visibility will drop to near zero. Now, these areas will face up to 50 centimeters of snow and gusty winds. 50. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of snow coming your way, so you need to take it easy. Travel will also be impacted in that part of the province. But we'll look at the conditions down south for the Red River Valley region. Winnipeg, we're seeing mostly cloudy skies right now. That should clear later in the day. We're about 2 degrees right now in the city. Morning temperature is going to be hovering around 4, fueled by some breezy north west winds, and we'll see a high close to 11 later. And that's what most of the regions down south will see. Highs close to 12 degrees, but Winnipeg would get to 11. But up north, it's more of these winter storms and blizzard warnings all over the place. So take it easy from the central all the way towards Thompson this morning. Churchill, we're seeing misty conditions there right now.
What's the deal, April?
I know April is just holding down to winter, saying it's not time to leave.
It's a hot mess. It's a cold mess.
Mm-hmm.
Can't make sense of it. Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That's Abby Adiemi behind the glass. Sierra Sanders is in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. Pretty quiet on the commuter line so far as we kick off this Friday morning commute. So not too much going on here in the city that I know about or surrounding Winnipeg so far. But as we heard Abby mention about those snow systems and that blizzard system that is starting to move through the north, highways are being affected. Right now, Manitoba 511 is reporting highways around the Thompson area being reported as covered. So you want to keep that in mind if you are up north and traveling on those highways to use caution. We're also seeing a closure from Leaf Rapids to Lynn Lake. So that's Highway 391. So that highway is actually closed there up north here. And so those highway conditions are starting to deteriorate and decline due to those weather systems moving through the north. So you want to keep that in mind if you're listening from up north right now, to drive with caution and plan accordingly if that is the case. And make sure to check Manitoba 511 if you are getting out on the highways for up-to-date conditions in any situations that are going on today. The number to call throughout the show if there is something that is getting in your way, whether you are here in the city or out on the highways, maybe you're listening from up north. I'd love to hear what you're seeing out there. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
Well, up first here on Information Radio, this Sunday marks 40 years since the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. The explosion at the northern Ukrainian power plant is considered one of the worst nuclear accidents in history. It led to the evacuation of the nearby city of Pripyat, with scientists estimating that much of the surrounding area will be uninhabitable for at least, get this, and this is an exaggeration, 20,000 years. That hasn't stopped people like David McMillan from visiting the region, and today, which is called Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. David is a Winnipeg photographer. He's visited the area 22 times using his camera to document changes in the region, and he joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you first visited Chernobyl, the exclusion zone, in 1994. That's 8 years after the disaster itself. So what struck you about that very first visit that you went there?
Well, I think I wasn't even sure how, widely I'd be able to explore the area. So everything I saw was interesting and different. And in some ways, it wasn't what I expected. I thought there would be more sort of deadness, like trees and et cetera, that were affected by the radiation. But there were only areas, the spread of the radiation was fairly sporadic. So, some areas got it heavily, in other areas it was rather light. So it wasn't uniform throughout the area. But I'd never been to sort of a Soviet era country, and the accident happened when Ukraine was still part of the Soviet Union. So seeing, the Soviet artifacts and the sort of cultural things was all new to me and very interesting.
And just kind of paint a bit of a picture for us of what it looks like there. Like, I think probably many people, maybe from The Simpsons, would picture things like glowing green. Obviously, that's probably not the case at all. But just like like you said, it's like devastation, but not to the same kind of degree that you expected. What do you mean by that? Like, what is the nature? What do the buildings look like? What does the ground look like?
Well, not unlike, let's say, here, except because people haven't lived there for so long, it's now become extremely overgrown. But I was there 8 years after the accident. My first visit was 8 years after the accident, and it didn't physically probably look that different than it might have, within a few weeks of the accident. I had a kind of sense, when I was a teenager, I read the book On the Beach by Neville Shute, and it describes the aftermath of a nuclear accident, well, not an accident, a nuclear war, and the effects of radiation that sort of causes buildings to stay intact, but unlivable because of the severity of the radiation. So I knew things would be pretty much intact, but because of the lack of human presence, there was considerable change over the years. I mean, you mentioned I started in 1994. My last visit was 2018. And by then buildings were collapsing and, trees were growing in rooms, and there was considerable change, noticeable. If my first visit had been in 2018, it would have been a different experience. But because I'd spread out visits over 24, 25 years, I sort of saw the gradual changes over time.
Is there a photo or anything like that sticks out to you the most that kind of speaks to that change that you've noticed in Chernobyl?
Well, there are some, if you see them in sequence. For example, there's a bridge that gave me sort of an unobstructed view of the reactor, and I photographed it from there annually towards the reactor. And eventually, the very last photograph I took, the reactor is obscured because of all the growth of the vegetation. There's another one that sort of parallels that. I photographed flags in a kindergarten stairwell, which showed all the countries of the former Soviet Union, one flag for each country. And the first year, in 1994, the flags were pretty representative. There were 2 or 3 missing. But the final one I photographed, there was really nothing recognizable. There were 1 or 2 frames that held the flags, but you wouldn't know what had been there originally. So yeah, it was very subtle. I mean, from year to year, the changes, were very subtle. But certainly on my last visit, the amount of vegetation, I mean, Pripyat, the city that once had nearly 500,000, or rather 50,000 people, was a forest. You know, it was very difficult to navigate between the buildings, and because of fallen trees and the scale of the trees. But if you had just gone there for the first time in 2018, I guess you wouldn't appreciate the scale of the growth of the natural world and how it was sort of reclaiming itself.
But at the same time, it's like this beauty of the natural world. But like, are those trees radioactive? Like, what's the situation there? Like, yeah.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say they're radioactive. They've been affected by radiation. I once met with the person that was head of forestry, and he said that most affected were pine trees, things like corkscrew needles and excessive cone production. But on the whole, the trees, from what I gather, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but from what I understand, they haven't been affected adversely. Certainly those closest to the reactor were killed within a few days. There was something known as the red forest and a pine forest. The trees turned red after a few days. They had to be buried on site because they were, in fact, so contaminated. But to be near a tree in Pripyat, I don't think the tree itself wouldn't be a problem. It's the stuff that landed on the ground that irradiated the ground. And it is very variable throughout the city. And generally, I should mention that Pripyat was built to house the workers at the nuclear power plant. So it's merely 1 or 2 kilometers from the plant. You know, you could walk to the power plant from Pripyat.
Before I let you go here, we just got a couple more minutes here. But when you go there, are you dressed in anything like protective gear or anything like that, or how does that work?
No. Originally, I wondered about that, and if I'd have to wear particular clothing, but there was only one place really that I had to sort of put a mask on, and that was at an area where they were burying vehicles that were used to decontaminate the site. After the accident, a lot of vehicles were used to bury things and move things and dig trenches and put things in the trenches and ditches. And they were in the process of being buried. So I just had to wear a mask while I was photographing there. But otherwise, at least originally, I would be given clothing that I was supposed to change out of, when I left the contaminated zone. So when I went back to the place I was staying, I was to change out of these clothes and go into my regular street clothes. But subsequently, there's no such, recommendation. I just wear old shoes. And, I used to throw them away after my visit, but now I put them in the garage, and yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll have to leave it there, David. I'm sure you're probably eager to get back there. I know the war is keeping you from going back, but
yes,
I imagine hopefully one day things can clear up and you can go. Thank you.
I hope so.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing those pictures. We'll have to have you on when that does eventually happen. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, it's a pleasure.
David McMillan is a Winnipeg photographer who's been to the Chernobyl exclusion zone 22 times, documenting changes to the region over that time. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded 40 years ago this Sunday. Well, next up here on Information Radio, time now is 6:25. There may be an indefinite ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, but conflict in the Strait of Hormuz is intensifying as a result of the flow of oil and other goods through the waterway has effectively come to a standstill, and that's putting an economic squeeze on the countries around the world. And joining me now is Alan Kessel. He served as an Assistant Deputy Minister for Legal Affairs at Global Affairs Canada and is now a Senior Fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
So what's the main impact of the blockade right now? Because it seems to be changing by the hour, it seems.
Well, it's very interesting. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most critical choke points in the world. We've been hearing a lot about it. About 1/5 of global oil and natural gas moves through it. What changed now is that Iran is seizing commercial vessels. So this isn't just risk, it's active disruption.
And we hear a lot about the impacts having on oil, but what other resources are being affected right now?
Well, you're also talking about natural gas, fertilizers, petrochemicals, and some consumer goods. So the impact spreads across supply chains. And this is particularly important for Canada and other agricultural countries, which depend on fertilizers, especially our farmers. They're in the planting season right now. Many of our farmers have already obtained their fertilizers for the year, but the impact on other countries and ourselves is tremendous, and this will continue as long as there's a disruption to the free passage of goods and vessels through these waterways.
In terms of the impact specifically on Canada, is it mostly just fertilizer, or what other kind of impacts are we seeing specifically here in Canada?
Well, what is happening is that we are an oil-producing country, but we are pricing our oil on world prices. So by definition, you have seen an increase in the gas price. That's not because we don't have the oil. It's because our pricing is based on an international barrel of oil. So as long as there is a threat to international oil, and as long as we price our oil based on that international market, we're going to be impacted. Questions could be asked whether we should have a made in Canada oil price, especially for this sort of thing. But that's an issue for the policymakers and the politicians to decide. For now, we are seeing transportation costs go up. With that means that there's a concomitant knock-on effect in terms of costs of production, costs of goods, and that is passed on to the consumer.
What about the long term? I know the Pentagon has told Congress it could take 6 months to clear the Strait of Mines. So what are the longer term consequences, if it's not safe for ships to pass, even if things do clear up in terms of the war?
So this is a really important aspect you've raised. This is an international shipping route. It's international waters. What is happening right now is a kind of a battle of wills between what I would call malevolent forces, such as Iran and the US and the West. The West, of course, believes that all of these international waters should be open. The Americans have based their entire world vision on ensuring that they can go anywhere they want to go on international waters. So what's happening right now is a battle of wills between the US and Iran to ensure that this international strait is opened. The important thing that's going on too is who's watching this. The Chinese are watching, the Russians are watching, North Koreans are watching. Why are they watching? Because there are international straits in their areas too. There's the international strait, the Strait of Taiwan, there's the South China Sea, there's the Malacca Strait, where huge amounts of trade go through. If the Americans and the West, because I include the West here, should be concerned about making this happen, is that if they do not succeed in pulling this back or curtailing Iran, it will send a really bad message to the Chinas and Russias and others of this world. They will see this as an opportunity to move in their direction, and they will see this as weakness on the part of the West.
Well, Alan, thanks for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is Alan Kessel. He served as an Assistant Deputy Minister for Legal Affairs at Global Affairs Canada and is now a Senior Fellow at the Macdonald Laurier Institute. We reached him in Ottawa this morning. Well, stay tuned here on Information Radio. Still to come here, there are new accusations of manipulation when it comes to the prediction markets, where people bet on real-world events. We're going to get the details on that, as well as talk about the Northern Super League. Its second season starts very soon, and we're going to talk about whether a team might be expanding here to Winnipeg. That's coming up right after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's a cool start to Friday. 2 degrees right now. A high today of only 11. That's a couple degrees cooler than the normal high of 14. So a mix of sun and clouds today. Still windy, and that high of 11 staying cool through the weekend. The waiting game continues for communities along the Fisher River. That river is expected to crest today in Peguis First Nation. Flood preparations have been ongoing for the past 2 weeks. Chief Stan Bird says this spring, feels different from other high water years.
There's a calm sense of confidence just knowing that a lot of the homes are protected. I don't see the chaos. No one has expressed any worry or frustration to me, so I think they're confident that the work that we've done will protect their homes. And if necessary, if an evacuation comes, it will be orderly.
At Fisher River Cree Nation, Chief David Crate says things are also looking good for his community of 1,500 on-reserve residents.
Things are looking good. The weather, the major rain event that was predicted for the area has missed us, which is good. And if everything holds as is, then we should be all right.
Crate says 54 people who have medical needs have been identified for potential evacuation, but he says that would only happen if the road out of the community is threatened. Meanwhile, the Assiniboine River also continues to be under a flood warning. The province's latest hydrologic forecast says snow melt water is passing through the system, raising levels along the Assiniboine. Provincial staff are supporting preparations for potential flooding of a number of communities in the parkland. A woman who fatally stabbed a 19-year-old after an argument at her Winnipeg home has been sentenced to 6 years. Benacy Kennedy died in January 2024. CBC's Caitlin Garlick has the details.
Court heard the argument between Benacy Kennedy and Anna Marie Hanska broke out after both had been drinking. Hanska kicked Kennedy out of her home and said she'd kill him if he came back. When he returned minutes later, Hanska stabbed him. Court heard she was then beaten and thrown from the home by others who were there. Hanska ended up in the hospital for days. In a victim impact statement, Kennedy's mother said she's now lost 3 of her children, including a teenage daughter who died in a rollover and another son who killed himself. Hanska, who's now 48, was initially charged with second-degree murder. She pleaded down to manslaughter, in part because of her extreme intoxication when she killed Kennedy. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada may be prepared to wait out U.S. President Donald Trump on negotiations to renew the CUSMA free trade deal. He says Canada's ready to enter into detailed negotiations should the opportunity arise, but is also ready to wait until the time is right, if need be. The country's former top trade negotiator has said Canada's in a good position heading into these trade talks because he says pressures on the Trump administration will only increase over time, especially with the November midterms looming. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Some Manitoba municipalities say police cost sharing with the federal government isn't sustainable. Under the current Provincial Police Services Agreement Act, some municipalities pay 70% of policing costs, with the rest paid by Ottawa. At the Association of Manitoba Municipalities meeting in Brandon, RM of Lac de Bonnie, Reeve Lorne Schinkel says the current model is getting pricey.
But we only have one ratepayer. So it's come to the point of where that ratepayer can no longer afford that, and there has to be significant changes in how that provincial police service agreement is monitored and applied.
Current policing contracts expire in 2032, and negotiations are on the way. Policing contracts with Ottawa are negotiated every 20 years. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Let's check in with the weather right now, which is pretty volatile up north.
Yeah, eyes just in central and northern Manitoba this morning, where we have this intense winter storm. We're talking about blizzards, we're talking about freezing rain warnings, and we're even looking at this system bringing ice and snow. So we're anticipating 50 centimeters once this system moves through. Hence the warnings we have active for Flin Flon and nearby areas, as we're going to be seeing a dangerous mix of freezing rain followed by this I call it huge amount of snow dumping in the region ending Saturday afternoon. So get ready for major disruptions and travel interruptions in that area. While for Lynn Lake, Gillam towards Tudula Lake, we're also seeing blizzard conditions in that area. Zero visibility, up to 50 centimeters of snow also on the way to that part of the region. At the same time, Thompson towards Norway House, we are seeing heavy ice build up, hence this freezing rain warning in place. So travel also going to be really extremely dangerous, and many roads may become completely impassable due to this system till it clears later in the evening. So be prepared for that. Now, conditions in the Red River Valley region down south, we're looking out for a mix of sun and clouds along with gusty southwest winds. It's currently 2 degrees at the Forks and 1 at the airport at this time. Mostly cloudy. Morning temperatures hovering around 4 or 5 degrees before we hit a high of 11 today, and then we drop to about 0 overnight. Some sunshine on its way tomorrow, but we will deal with some showers tonight before we get those sunshine tomorrow. Other regions down south, we're looking at 2 degrees around Morden. Brandon is currently at -1, Dauphin -2. In the Interlake, we're seeing 0 there. A mix of sun and clouds on the way for that part of the province, warming to 10. While up north, the powerful influence, we're seeing this freezing rain active there at this time. -1 at the current reading. Norway House, 1 degree with rain. Thompson is currently seeing freezing rain at -3. Gillam and Lane Lake, we're looking at those blizzard conditions building up there, and the snow is going to be hitting both regions. We're going to see temperatures around 7 degrees, -7 there. And then for Tudula Lake, also the blizzard continues. Churchill, it's kind of misty here, but we see gusty winds, and it's going to be warming up to 4 degrees later. Winnipeg, we're just around 2 degrees right now, and we get to warm up to 11 later in the day.
Wow, quite the difference. Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders, speaking of travel disruptions, I think we already have a highway closure up north right now.
Yeah, we do, Corey. So that's going to be Highway 391 from Leaf Rapids to Lynn Lake. That is closed as of this morning, according to Manitoba 511, because of that weather system that is moving through up north. We heard Abby mention that those weather systems moving through the north are going to impact travel and those highways. And I can say we are seeing highways being reported as covered and partly covered. Highways around Thompson, specifically Highway 6, as you head up north, there is being reported as covered. It looks like plows are out, though. So if you are on Highway 6 heading up north and you're listening to us, watch out for those plows as they look to make sure those highways are clear for you to drive. But also just be cautious if you are heading out on those highways up north today as those weather systems start to move through the north. I understand our northern reporter Eric Westhaver went out on a trek to go watch the Flin Flon Bombers capture the SJHL championship, which they did win. Congratulations to the Flin Flon Bombers. So I understand that he made a little bit of a trek over the Saskatchewan border to go watch them, and he said that it was a little bit of a treacherous drive.
I can imagine.
But he made it, and he was there, and he said the experience was amazing. So we're going to see if we can kind of tap into that a little bit later in the show today. The commuter line has been quiet, though, so not too much going on here in the city or any big backups or any situations to be aware of. But if that's not the case and there is something getting in your way, whether you are here in the city or out on the highways, maybe you're up north and you want to let me know what you're seeing out there, that'd be amazing. Give me a call. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. That is your studio director, Sierra Sanders, with keeping an eye on your commute. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Well, up next here on the show, Christy Lee Ramlakan joins us with your business report. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Corey.
So, new accusations of manipulation when it comes to prediction markets. That's where people bet on real-world events. So, what are the details there?
Yes, that's right. A U.S. soldier involved in the military operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has been charged with using classified information to win more than $400,000 in an online betting market. So the federal prosecutor's office in New York says Gannon Ken Van Dyke used his access to classified information to make money on prediction market site Polymarket. So he has been charged with unlawful use of confidential government information for personal gain, theft of non-public government information, commodities fraud, wire fraud, and making an unlawful monetary transaction. And that's not the end for Polymarket controversies. Paris police are also investigating after some recent wins in long shot Polymarket bets on local weather. So the French National Weather Service notified authorities that someone may have messed with a sensor which the prediction market used to gauge the city's temperature. So there's speculation meddlers might have used a hair dryer to heat the air around a sensor. And the temperature swings registered by the equipment led to some big payouts. A Polymarket account won over $21,000, wagering just $120 that Paris's temperature would not peak at 18 degrees on April 15th. So the bet was placed in the afternoon as the air was cooling from 18 degrees before it shortly surged to 22 degrees. And a peculiar evening temperature spike a few days prior made $14,000 for a different account.
Wild. I don't.
It is.
The lengths people go, that just blows my mind. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, next year we are seeing more cuts in the tech sector. What's going on there?
Yes, that's right. Meta is laying off about 8,000 workers, and Microsoft is offering buyouts to a similar number. Meta plans to cut about 10% of its workforce in an effort to invest in other parts of its business and for efficiency. And Microsoft is taking a different approach by offering voluntary buyouts to thousands of its U.S. employees. So the tech sector is pouring billions into artificial intelligence infrastructure and talent. And analysts say companies are reshaping their workforces so AI can take on more tasks. And staying with corporate cuts, Nike is also laying off about 1,400 people to streamline workflows as the struggling sportswear company fights through a years-long sales slump. So it is the latest in a string of job cuts at Nike. The company most recently axed almost 800 roles in January in a bid to speed up automation. And Nike shares have lost more than half of their value in the last 3 years as competitors such as Hoka have won more shelf space.
It's funny, I used to work at a shoe store, and I remember when Hoka's first hit the shelves. I'm like, who's going to buy those? They look like platform shoes. And then here I am. It's a good thing I don't make bets on the prediction markets because I would be poor.
There you go. Yeah, no, and they're so popular now.
So popular, yes. Yeah. And Warner Bros. Finally here. Shareholders have approved the $81 billion takeover by Paramount. What's next?
Yes, so the mega merger could vastly reshape Hollywood and the wider media landscape. So the deal means HBO Max, Harry Potter, and even CNN could soon find themselves under the same roof as CBS, Top Gun, and the Paramount Plus streaming service. But it's not a done deal yet. The acquisition still faces regulatory reviews, and Paramount's quest for Warner has been far from smooth. Last year, Warner rebuffed Paramount to instead strike a deal with Netflix. And Paramount then went directly to shareholders with a hostile bid to take over the whole company, including the cable business that Netflix didn't want. So all three companies spent months publicly battling, but eventually Paramount offered more money and Netflix bowed out. So that corporate drama may be over for now, but thousands of actors, directors, writers, and other industry professionals have voiced opposition to the deal, arguing further consolidation will lead to job losses and fewer choices for both filmmakers and people like us, moviegoers.
Well, Christy, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
That is Christy Ramlakan with your business news. 6:44 right now, and still to come, we're going to be talking soccer. The Northern Super League's second season kicks off tonight. Its president, Christina Litz, who happens to be a Winnipegger, is going to be joining us on the show to talk about that new season and what it could look like in terms of expansion potentially in the coming years. I know there's a big push from Desiree Scott, for example, to get a Northern Super League team here. So we're going to talk to Christina about that. But first, let's stick with soccer, but a bit of a different angle. For anyone who has a lawn, the challenge of growing and maintaining the grass can be substantial. But imagine what it's like for those in charge of the turf at the FIFA World Cup. Well, Toronto's BMO Field and Vancouver's BC Place will be 2 of 16 stadiums to host World Cup matches this summer. Each venue is unique, but FIFA requires the turf on every pitch to feel exactly the same. The idea that everyone's on a level playing field, so to speak. But how do you get the same grass conditions in Toronto, Mexico City, and Miami? Not to mention 13 other cities across the entire continent. Well, FIFA hired John Sorochen to figure it out, and he teaches turf grass science and management at the University of Tennessee.
They've got a set of criteria, FIFA. Everything has to be played on natural grass. And to have the perfect natural grass, they require some grow lights. They have what they call vacuum ventilation, where they could blow in air into the sand, that everything's grown in a sand root zone, and they could have oxygen for the roots. If it rains, they can reverse the blowers and create a suction, and so you wouldn't have too much water. And then they've got what they call hybrid reinforcement. It's like they take plastic fibers and they put them into the sand like rebar and stabilize the sand. So when you run and play on the surface, you're playing on grass, but it's stabilized by these plastic fibers that prevent big blowouts from happening. So it's smooth and uniform. Consistency and uniformity is what we're looking for. There's different kinds of grasses that you grow in Miami versus what's going to be grown in Toronto. So we've looked at how you manage these grasses, and each of the 16 stadiums is kind of its own a la carte stadium. 5 of them are domed. So Vancouver's indoors, Atlanta's indoors. And how do we grow these grasses so that when the ball bounces, if it comes in on an angle or it's rolling across the surface from a pass or a player's running and stopping, it's going to have the same feel of foot from one stadium to the next. And it's just come down to simple management and a lot of research over the past 3-4 years. Coming full circle from doing it as a student to now being one of the leaders for the research for the 26th World Cup with, 16 stadiums and 104 matches has been, it's been a highlight of my career. But the best part is seeing the students like I was now working for me and them going on to things. I've got 2 students working for FIFA now. I've got, a whole bunch of students that have been involved with this program, and it's probably life-changing for them as well. As a fan, I'm going to go to a game in Atlanta with my family. I have my wife and 2 boys. We're going to go to Spain, Cape Verde. But then we also have tickets for Canada, Switzerland, and Vancouver. As a Canadian, I have to go see Canada play in Canada, so that's a lifetime thing. I'll be watching the field as well as Canada, hopefully win.
That's John Sorokin, who has maybe the coolest job in the world. He teaches turfgrass science and management at the University of Tennessee. Well, let's keep the soccer theme going, shall we? So just in time for that new season, the Northern Super League dropped its own song. It's a collaboration between Halifax Tides player Tiffany Cameron and Juno-nominated reggae artist Jamila. Here they are with Victory.
All we gotta do is win. So if they sleep on you, tuck them in. Meet me at the top. If you bought, I'll drop my pen. So many stars in the making, thank you, sing. Built to thrill. Whoa. Eyes on the prize, I say passionate. I got the sauce like Diana, vision like medicine. They say patience is a virtue, so I went around the world and back again. Now NSL be on the map, no more imagining, it's happening. Collect the CAD and let it flow like the tides, call that currency. Born in Toronto, AFC, pay the pathway for the kids so that they can dream. Say la vie, if you work hard, you rateros. It's game time, let's put the ball in motion. Obstacles in my way, gotta rise like Vancouver. Positive mindset, negative, gotta maneuver. I work hard, cause I don't wanna be average. Gain some capital like Ottawa, kinda rapid quick. No time for low key, I keep it wild and free like Calgary. I just wanna play ball and be me.
That is Victory. It's a song, it's a collaboration actually between Halifax Tides player Tiffany Cameron and Juno-nominated reggae artist Jamila. And that, of course, Tiffany Cameron is part of the Northern Super League. And next up here on the show, the Northern Super League, as we were mentioning there, brought professional women's soccer to Canada last year. The first season ended last year with Vancouver's Rise FC claiming the inaugural championship title.
And that's it! History made for the Vancouver Rise, your first ever Northern Super League champions!
And now season 2 kicks off tonight with a rematch as Vancouver hosts AFC Toronto. Then Saturday it's Halifax versus Ottawa. And Winnipeg's own Christina Litz is president of the Northern Super League and joins us now for a closer look at how things are going. Good morning.
Good morning, Winnipeg. How are you this morning?
Good. Welcome back. Well, so before season 1 kicked off, there were questions around whether this vision could even become a reality in the first place, right? So heading into season 2, how do you feel things are stacking up, against those expectations?
Well, look, anybody who worked on the league that was close to the league, we didn't have any question that this was going to work. We saw what was happening in the women's sports movement, in particular in women's soccer. And we went into the season setting very high expectations for ourselves. Like, it's our mission statement to be a top 5 league in the world. And so listening to the end of that exciting season last year, by the time we got there, we finished with some pretty strong fundamentals for us, finishing top 3 in the world for attendance for women's pro soccer in the world after season 1, top 8 for revenue, and a really competitive season. So those really built strong foundations going into season 2.
What does that mean financially for the league as well? Like, how satisfied are you with the stability, investment, all that?
Look, I mean, what we're seeing right now is that pro women's sports is one of the fastest growing industries in the world, with Deloitte recently estimating that today it's a $3 billion business. And women's soccer in particular is slated to become a top 5 sport overall in the world by 2030. In other words, for the investors who joined the NSL from the get-go, even after year 1, based on some of those metrics that I shared, they're already seeing significant growth in the value of their club. And so with that, we're seeing investors from all around the world who are interested in what we're building here, seeing what we're doing, seeing the strong support for women's sports and women's soccer here. And that really allows for increased investment and the ability for us to keep, growing this league, investing in this league and building that long runway for the future.
So what's the chances then some of that money could end up making a team here in Winnipeg? I know, local Olympian Desiree Scott, former Valor coach Rob Gale, they're pushing to have an NSL team here 2027. So what's the chances that'll happen?
Well, look, as Diana Matheson, who was the founder of our league, says, a recently retired national team player who has nothing to do is pretty dangerous. She started a league, and so we can see what Desiree is doing here. She wants to bring a legacy for the city. Alongside Rob Gale, who has such an incredible history in that game. Those are strong foundations for a potential expansion team in Winnipeg. And we were really public early last fall that we were looking for our expansion in 2027 to be central or west. So I can't make any announcements today, but we see what they're doing there. We see the strong support in the community, and we think Winnipeg, whether it's 27 or beyond, would make an incredible expansion market for the Northern Super League.
When roughly would we know if Winnipeg is getting an expansion team? Like, when would that be kind of decided and announced roughly, so that people can kind of keep an eye out?
Yeah, we're getting pretty close to making an announcement around this. I think you can expect early summer is when we will tell you what's happening for 2027.
Okay, and let's come back to this season. I'm looking forward to those details, obviously. So what can fans expect as the season kicks off? What's next for the Northern Super League?
Well, look, I think what last year showed us, and certainly going into this year, is that this country has some incredible players playing this game. We saw 7 of our own players called up to the Canadian women's national team. even in our first season last year, and tens more called up to as dual nationals, called up to the teams around the world. And so what I find really exciting about this year is, while this little men's tournament is happening in this country, which are going to put more eyeballs on the game, come and watch the journey of these women with us as we lead into an exciting time for them. There's the Women's World Cup in Brazil in 2027, followed by the LA Olympics in 2028. And as you know, sports is all about stakes and stories. And we have some incredible stories emerging in our league. Come and watch these players develop this year, see what happens as we lead to the world stage in the coming years.
And in terms of what you learned from last season, what kind of changes are you bringing to season 2? From that first year, which I imagine must come with lots of learning.
Yeah, look, season 1, we were truly a startup in every sense of the word, bringing this league together in a very short amount of time and arguably building the plane while we were flying it, which was wild and a lot of fun. But we want to get better at everything that we're doing here on some of the boring stuff of sports business. But at a bigger level, I think we're also learning, as we suspected, that this country still lacks some critical sports infrastructure needed to evolve a pro league like ours. But more importantly for us, and critical to our mission, that also supports the next generation of players who dream of playing in a league like ours. In almost every market we've visited, we're hearing time and time again that kids need more places to practice. Girls need more places to play alongside our players who need better elite training facilities and, mid-sized soccer stadiums, across the country, as countries around the world continue to invest, not only because this provides a ton of economic development for the communities, but also because it is really important to the future of our game and for the kids in our communities. So we very much intend to take a leadership role in that as we look to talk about what the legacy of this World Cup means to Canada.
Well, we'll leave it there, Christina. Thanks for your time this morning, and look forward to seeing what comes in early summer.
Thanks. Take care.
You too. Christina Litz is president of the Northern Super League. She's also a Winnipegger. 6:57 right now. And just a heads up for folks up north, as you heard, with all that really bad weather, there's a bunch of school closures to keep an eye out for, in Thompson in particular. So actually, I just saw posted on Facebook on the school district of Mystery Lake, which oversees the schools in Thompson. All schools in that school division are closed today due to, it says, safety reasons because of all that snow. As well, in the DSFM, École La Voie du Nord in Thompson also closed this morning. Stay tuned. Still to come here on Information Radio. Imagine taking a school trip to a different province and being so inspired you base a school project on what you saw. That's what one Ontario student did after she visited Churchill. So we're going to hear what stuck with her and how her project turned out. That is coming up after 7 o'clock. Right now, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Well, communities along the Fisher River continue holding their breath. The river's expected to crest today in Peguis First Nation. They are feeling confident with their preparations. Same story downriver at Fisher River Cree Nation. The Assiniboine River also continues to be under a flood warning. We'll hear the latest on that in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. The highway between Lynn Lake and Leaf Rapids also closed right now. That's 391 between highways between Leaf Rapids and Lynn Lake due to poor conditions. Those conditions are deteriorating. You can give us a call, 204-788-3093 if you have any updates on the highways. We'll see you after World Report.
I was an actor, now I'm a waiter. Supposed to go in the other direction. So's your apron, you're wearing it like a cape.
For a long time, working in bars and restaurants has been seen as a starter job, maybe a way to pay your way through school. That might be starting to change, though. Why Canadians are starting to see the service and hospitality industries as long-term career paths. Coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Breaking news now from Ottawa, where the Carney government has just announced a major pipeline project in British Columbia. The Sunrise expansion is a multi-billion-dollar addition to an Enbridge natural gas pipeline in the interior of the province. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. Janice, why is this specific project so significant for the Carney government's broader resource strategy?
John, this approval is going to greenlight 139 kilometers of new pipeline in 11 looping segments, boosting capacity along Enbridge's existing north-south route. It starts just north of Prince George, it goes all the way down to the U.S. border. The Sunrise expansion is a $4 billion project. It's estimated to add more than $3 billion annually to Canada's GDP by exporting more gas to new markets, including in Asia. What's notable is that this project is co-owned by Enbridge and 38 First Nations, and the company has already spent tens of millions of dollars hiring and procuring services from local Indigenous businesses. During testimony yesterday at the Commons Natural Resources Committee, Minister Tim Hodgson suggested this is only the beginning when it comes to expansion, not only in BC, but in Eastern Canada as well, because he's had strong expressions of interest from countries in Europe and Asia. All of them want Canada's natural gas.
Several of those countries are in the process of inking contracts with different Canadian projects today.
Janice, this project is a natural gas pipeline, but the opposition remains critical of the lack of progress on a West Coast bitumen pipeline. What's Hodgson saying about that?
He told the committee that the timelines for an additional oil pipeline are up to the private sector proponents, or in the case of the federal government's MOU, the Alberta government, which is still working on it. Now, despite reports that a route may be getting close to being finalized, Pierre Poilievre remained dismissive yesterday.
A year after Mark Carney promised to build at speeds not seen in generations, his promised pipeline to the Pacific has no start date, no end date, and no oil to put in it.
But here's something that both of these pipeline proposals may have in common: Indigenous participation. Hodgson told MPs yesterday that federal money might be supporting Alberta's pipeline ambitions by financing an Indigenous equity stake with loan guarantees.
Janice McGregor in our parliamentary bureau. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Israel and Lebanon agree to extend their ceasefire, but the peace remains incredibly fragile. Following a high-stakes meeting in Washington yesterday, U.S. President Donald Trump announced the pause will continue for another 3 weeks. While the president is expressing confidence that a permanent deal is within reach, the reality on the ground, a different story. CBC's Chris Brown reports from Lebanon.
From northern Israel, photographers can see the IDF bombs hitting Lebanese villages across the border in what Israel calls its new security zone. The agreement to extend the ceasefire for 3 weeks doesn't mean peace, only that the area of combat in Lebanon has supposedly shrunk to this southern area. At least 7 people in Lebanon, including a prominent journalist, have been killed in the past 48 hours, and Hezbollah has also fired into Israel for the first time since the ceasefire. Ignoring all that, Donald Trump nonetheless predicted everything will work out.
I think there's a very good chance of having peace. I think it should be an easy one relative to some of the things we're working on.
The Lebanese government is meant to ensure Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militant group, abides by the ceasefire. But in the southern Shia communities, there's little faith Lebanon's government has their best interests. There's no word that Israel has accepted key demands from Lebanon to stop demolishing villages and to pull back across the border. Trump didn't mention that either, and instead pushed a potential meeting between Lebanon's president and Israel's prime minister.
I think we'll do it during this period of time, during the 3-week period, ideally.
Lebanon appears to be slow-walking that. It's hard to see President Joseph Aoun shaking hands with an Israeli leader who occupies dozens of communities in his country. Chris Brown, CBC News, Beirut.
A U.S. Special Forces soldier who helped capture Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro is now facing a different kind of fight in court. Gannon Ken Van Dyke was a key player in the January raid, but federal prosecutors say he used his insider knowledge to turn a profit. In early January, Van Dyke allegedly made hundreds of thousands of dollars after wagering on a betting website gambling that Maduro would soon be removed from power. President Donald Trump is weighing in, comparing the scandal to a famous baseball controversy from the 1980s.
That's like Pete Rose betting on his own team. It's a little like Pete Rose. Pete Rose, they kept him out of the Hall of Fame because he bet on his own team. Now, if he bet against his team, that would be no good, but he bet on his own team. I'll look into it.
Van Dyke could face up to 60 years in prison if convicted. Proposed legislation to legalize assisted dying in England and Wales will not become law. The House of Lords failed to pass the bill despite it being approved nearly a year ago by British MPs. Crystal Gamansing has more from London.
I am despondent.
Before his colleagues in the House of Lords, Charlie Faulkner said the terminally ill adults end-of-life bill failed not on its merits, but because of procedural wranglings. More than 1,000 amendments were made in the House of Lords, and it never made it out of the committee stage.
The suggestion that members of Parliament did not deeply interrogate this bill in the other place is profoundly mistaken.
Tanny Gray-Thompson is one of those in the unelected upper chamber who disagrees.
It's a poorly written bill. It was written in haste.
Backbench MP Kim Leadbeater was the one who brought forward the private members' bill.
It's just upsetting and it's disappointing.
Last June, MPs voted 314 to 291 in favor of granting terminally ill adults with less than 6 months to live the right to end their own lives by lethal injection, on the approval of 2 doctors and an expert panel.
Is not over.
Pamela from West Yorkshire has terminal breast cancer. She attended a small rally by the advocacy group Dignity in Dying before today's final session in the House of Lords.
We shall fight for as long as it takes, and I'm absolutely certain that in the end we will be successful.
Efforts are now underway to have MPs work together and bring back the legislation for the next session of Parliament. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Well, that is the soundtrack of a spring morning in northern Saskatchewan. A massive blizzard is stalled over the province, and some areas in the far north could see up to 70 centimeters of snow by tomorrow. A 90-kilometer-an-hour wind creating a total whiteout. Several highways already closed and traffic not recommended across the north. Saskatoon and Prince Albert are experiencing another 20 centimeters today. And a northern Alberta community is on high alert this morning as a state of local emergency remains in effect for Peace River. A massive ice jam upstream has put the town's entire downtown core at risk of sudden, unpredictable flooding. Residents are being told to have emergency kits ready and vehicles fueled, with a warning they may have to evacuate at a moment's notice. Officials say the ice buildup could cause water levels to spike in seconds. And finally, last month, we brought you the story of an Ontario couple facing a $300,000 mandatory investigation after Indigenous ancestral remains were found on their property. Since that story aired, more Ontario homeowners in the same situation have come forward, including one couple facing a bill that could reach $500,000. Kimberly Everney reports.
2 locals walking the shoreline of Wolfe Island, Ontario, discovered a human skull in a sandy bank in April 2006. More Indigenous ancestral remains were found there, but the burial site was never investigated. Today, new homeowners Dave and Cheryl Van Hall are saddled with a provincial order to complete the inquiry.
Why are we paying for that one?
100 kilometers west in Prince Edward County, J&D Kettle discovered ancestral remains last summer during renovations. An archaeologist estimates the provincially mandated investigation could cost $500,000.
I don't sleep at night. My mind is always going 1,000 miles a minute.
CBC News has learned of 5 other homeowners navigating Ontario rules around ancestral remains discoveries. A growing number of Indigenous and non-Indigenous experts and homeowners say the rules take the onus off the government in addressing the matter.
There's just so much responsibility that's being shirked.
Terry Lynn Brennan is an archaeologist in Ontario who is of Mohawk, Tuscarora, and British heritage.
This is a situation that has deeper roots than homeowners. This has got more to do with land rights. And there is no way within the current system to make any of this right.
CBC News has repeatedly asked Ontario Premier Doug Ford if he would change the current law. His office has never responded. Kimberly Aveney, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Very, very snowy, icy, sleety up north this morning. We have a number of school closures, particularly in Thompson. We're going to get to that and get more in-depth coverage of your weather. Also, lots going on just across the province in terms of news. And but first, though, here on the show, we're going to speak with a grade 12 student from Ontario about a trip to Churchill that stuck with her so much it became a focus for a school project.
I hope to look more into it because, research is not only a great way for me to learn more about our country's history, but also a way for me to learn about the problem.
That is coming up. We're going to talk about her research on food insecurity. Also, we're going to hear from Vancouver-based composer about how his new album helped him connect with his heritage growing up in Manitoba and finding out late in life he was Métis. All that coming up right here on Information Radio. Right now, though, 7:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, the waiting game continues for communities along the Fisher River. The river is expected to crest today in Peguas First Nation. Flood preparations have been ongoing for the past 2 weeks, and the chief there, Stan Bird, says there is a sense of confidence knowing a lot of homes have been protected. So we'll hear from him. Also at Fisher River Cree Nation, Chief David Crate says things there are looking good. A woman who fatally stabbed a 19-year-old after an argument at her Winnipeg home has been sentenced to 6 years. Benace Kennedy died in January 2024 after an argument with Anna Maria Hanska. Hanska, 48 years old now, initially was charged with second-degree murder, but she pleaded down to manslaughter. We'll hear why in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Schools in the school district of Mystery Lake are closed this morning. That is all the schools. That is the school division that covers the Thompson area. That also includes in the DSFM École Voix du Nord. And Abby is here to tell us why, because it is very, very snowy up north this morning.
Well, that winter storm is really, really active right now around the Flin Flon and the Power. We're looking at a heavy snow actually coming down in that part of the province, and this is extending even towards Lynn Lake. We're looking at freezing rain mixed with these, and along with this heavy snow coming down, you should be seeing, let's just say, additional 15 centimeters of snow added to what you've been getting, and that should be ending by Saturday afternoon. So be prepared for disruptions when it comes to travel and commuting. While if you go towards Gillam to Dooley Lake, we have this blizzard still active in that part of the province, hence the warning near zero visibility and up to 50 centimeters of snow expected on its way. So for the Flin Flon side, we're looking at 15, and then towards to Dooley Lake and Gillam, we're going to be seeing about 50 centimeters of snow on the way. This is all accumulations into Saturday afternoon. For Thompson towards Island Lake, we're seeing this heavy ice build up, hence a freezing rain warning also in place. But for the south, Winnipeg and nearby, we're seeing a mix of sun and clouds, windy conditions in the mix, gusting all the way to 50, still at 2 degrees at the Forks, partly cloudy skies. Temperature's going to stay around 4 or 5 degrees before we hit a high of 11 today. Then that will be followed by a slim chance of showers tonight before we get that sunny conditions coming our way for talking about the weekend. Similar conditions across southern regions, but up north, as mentioned earlier, Flin Flon already getting heavy snow. We're seeing temperatures around -3 there. Well, we have blizzard around to Dooley Lake. Churchill, we're seeing light snow and blowing snow there right now. So up north, it's still more like a winter wonderland mixed with icy roads and slippery conditions. So take it easy. Winnipeg right now, we're warming up to 11, but we're currently at 2 degrees.
I'm sure everyone sees it as a winter wonderland up there. I'm sure everyone's just feeling the festive spirit right now.
No, Corey. No.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That's Abby Adiyemi, Sierra Sanders, and of course, we got a highway closure to mention here.
Yeah, we do. Highway 391, so that's from Leaf Rapids to Lynn Lake, is closed. That is due to the declining conditions up there as those weather systems start to hit the north. And staying up north there, big kind of area there up north that is being kind of blast with that spring storm. I don't know.
Who knows these
Who
days?
knows these days what we want to call it? But highways around Thompson there are being reported as covered there due to those systems there. The plows are out there on Highway 6 there up north, making sure that those roads are as clear as they can. So if you're listening and you're traveling up north, specifically on Highway 6 or any of those highways surrounding the north there, you want to be aware of those highway conditions and drive with caution and adjust your driving to those conditions. And always check Manitoba 511 as well before you head out for up-to-date conditions and any situations that are going on out there. So far, it's been pretty quiet on the commuter line this morning, so it sounds like things are moving pretty smoothly, at least here inside the city and surrounding Winnipeg. But if that's not the case and there is something you want to let me know about, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, up first here on Information Radio, have you ever been on a school trip that stuck with you? Maybe you still think about it years later. Well, our next guest has. She says it inspired her school project. And Clara Gong is a grade 12 student at Country Day School in King City, Ontario. And in 2024, she visited Churchill through a summer program for high school students. It was during her trip where she saw food prices very different compared to the ones she usually sees. This stuck with her so much, she decided to base a school project on food insecurity in the North. And she spent time researching its history and even built a website to share what she learned. And she joins us and she wants to reach more people to expand her learning. And she joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Claire, tell us what it was like being in Churchill, that first kind of experience for you.
Yeah, so it's very different from Ontario in a sense that the buildings are a little bit different. It's a lot colder up there. It was during the summer, but it was still like 0 degrees. I remember kayaking on the waters and it was freezing. But, most importantly, I went to a grocery store and they only have one major one in Churchill. So I went there and I remember looking at a watermelon because I wanted to buy snacks for my friends and I because we were hungry. And it was $20. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, because at home I would already complain about food prices. So to me, it was absolutely insane. And I wondered how people could, live off of this when groceries already down in Ontario are like $200 per family.
And so this inspired you so much, you went back and you wanted to do a school project about it. Tell us a little about the project you did.
Yeah, so my teacher actually gave us a lot of creative freedom, and she wanted us to do something that either impacted our community or something else that we found passionate about. And I've already dabbled in, things that impacted the community around me specifically, like my neighborhood or the GTA itself. So I wanted to do something that was a little bit bigger that could possibly impact Canada more. And the first thing I thought about was Churchill because I have been thinking about it, this past year or so, and I've already done a little bit of surface level research. So I decided to look more into it. And the more I looked into it, the more I learned about the Greater North and, the flying communities that have it even worse than Churchill. And I realized that also for the average Canadian, it's not something you think about a lot. And it's even something that I doubt a lot of people know about to an extent. And I talked to my family about it. I talked to my friends and I talked to my older brother. And, it's something that I think that everyone should know, but not enough people should know about. So that's why I decided to do it.
It's a pretty sleek looking website too. So you kind of break down how it helps teach people about food insecurity in the North?
Yeah, so I wanted it to be a little bit more personal. So on the homepage, it talks a little bit about me and my visit there, and then Churchill. And I wanted to do it specifically on Churchill because it's somewhere I visited and it's somewhere where I have a connection with particularly. And the North is where I wanted to expand it. And hopefully I can use Churchill to expand it into, the bigger issue because there are flying communities that have it much worse than Churchill. And there's a Take Action site where I added a lot, like such as Harvest Manitoba and True North Aid, where I added places you can donate to and what you can look at. And hopefully it has everything. I'm still editing it and adding more to it as I learn more.
That's great. Have you? I don't know if you're able to like measure traffic or anything like it, but has there been anyone who's like reached out or who has seen the website or anything like that? I don't know if you can see any of that kind of stuff or not.
Yeah, yeah, I use an app, so I do look at it when I do track it sometimes. Yeah, a few people have reached out to talk to me. Yeah. I think it's really great because a lot of people have come to me with insights about, their personal experience. And it also helps me learn more and think about what else I can add to it or what I was missing or what was overlooked. And I think it's also great to have people's firsthand experience. A lot of people have come to me with their own experience.
Oh, really? Like any
Yeah.
examples at all that stand out to you?
Yeah, there's someone came to me and they actually lived in Churchill for a while. They worked there. They talked to me about the port. Someone else also, I believe, visited a flying community up north, somewhere in near Callaway or something. And, I think it was really, really cool. And I definitely want to add more about the north because I do realize it is a huge problem.
And of course, you're in high school. You're still figuring out what you want to do. But has this shaped at all your thoughts of the future, but maybe what you want to pursue or study down the road?
Yeah, actually. Right now I'm going into business, but I definitely want to continue this on the side. Hopefully I get to do some MPO work in the future, and I definitely want to continue this website through university and hopefully after and build on it. And I want to reach out to more organizations and learn more and hopefully add them to my website as well.
Well, Clara, thanks for your time this morning and all the best with your project.
Thank you so much.
Clara Gong is a grade 12 student at Country Day School in King City, Ontario. Head to thepriceupnorth.com. That's thepriceupnorth.com to check out her project on food security in Canada's north. Well, time now is 7:22 here on Information Radio. And here in Winnipeg is a very long anticipated concert coming to the concert hall tomorrow. William Prince and Boy Golden are going to be playing together. Two Winnipeg, dare I even say, icons right now. They're both going really big, doing really big things on the music scene. And we played a lot of William Prince recently, and we're going to play a little bit of Boy Golden right now. I'm sure we'll play some William Prince later on. This next tune could qualify as a protest song out just last year, reflecting on the times we're living in. From Boy Golden, this is Suffer on CBC Radio 1.
Every day is a masterpiece laid out on the street in front of me. Every day another tragedy laid out on the street in front of me. Prices go up and they don't come down. Cost $40 just to hang around. I know people sleeping on the ground. Prices go up and they don't come down. I wanna know where my money went. I want a new president. Wanna believe that God is benevolent. I wanna know where my money went. Yeah. We all suffer under the cover of the night. Under the cover of the night. We all suffer. Yeah. Painkillers and nicotine. White bread and trashy TV. You can drink yourself half asleep. Just don't do it in front of me. Bad actors in politics. I can't take too much more of this. I'm looking for a more permanent fix, like a deep, dark hole in a ditch. We sit in our living rooms and become what we consume. There's nothing old and nothing new.
That is musician Liam Duncan, a.k.a. Boy Golden. He's from Brandon, Manitoba originally. That song is called Suffer. Now, he's joining William Prince tomorrow at a sold-out show at the Centennial Concert Hall. That's going to be a pretty great show, I think. 7:25 right now here on Information Radio. And just ahead of morning sports, I do want to give a shout-out to some Manitoba teams that did big things yesterday. I know the Jets didn't do great, but locally, Manitoba's kind of killing it. Last night, the Flin Flon Bombers won the SJHL last night, defeating the Yorkton Terriers 2-0. Congratulations. We're actually going to have our Flin Flon reporter joining us. He was at the game in Yorkton. He made the drive all the way to Yorkton through a snowstorm to catch that game. So we're going to chat with him after 8. Also, congratulations to the Niverville Nighthawks of the MJHL. They captured their first ever Turnbill Cup. We're going to hear from the team's president coming up this next half hour on Information Radio. So big night last night for Manitoba hockey. But now let's turn to morning sports with Scott Regehr. Hello.
Hey, Corey.
So let's start with basketball now and reversal of fortune for the Raptors.
Yeah, and the youthful trio of Scotty Barnes, R.J. Barrett, and Colin Murray Bowles were behind that reversal of fortune, Corey. They combined for 88 points, so the vast majority of Toronto's scoring in what ended up a rout of the Cavaliers. It has the Raptors back in the series after they looked very much on the outside looking in after those first two losses in Cleveland. After netting a career high for the playoffs, 33 points, the Canadian R.J. Barrett offered this self-assessment.
Just playing hard. I'm a dog, so just going to go out there and do it for Toronto every night. The crowds definitely helped us out there a lot. We've been missing y'all. A good win. We're going to need the crowd even louder next game, and let's go get game 4.
Yeah, tough to say which set of Raptors fans, Corey, were more hyped up last night. The ones outside packing Jurassic Park or the ones inside where Blue Jays star Vladdy Guerrero Jr. grabbed a mic at one point and tried to whip the assembled masses into a frenzy. That said, the team's global ambassador, Drake, was a notable absentee. His courtside seats left empty and covered in fake ice. A theatrical display, I suppose, is meant to promote his new album. He missed a pretty good game. The Raptors will try to tie this series coming up on Sunday.
Let's talk hockey now. So where things didn't go quite so well for the Ottawa Senators.
No, just like the Raptors, Corey, Ottawa were down 2-0 in their series and looking to get back on track at home, which did not happen. They fell 2-1 while seeing their best defenseman, Jake Sanderson, felled by a very questionable hit to the head. It was levied by Taylor Hall, and we'll see whether the Department of Player Safety steps in on this. But Ottawa up against it, trailing 3-0 with their next game coming up on Saturday.
And a big night in Canadian women's soccer.
It is, with the Northern Premier League beginning its second season, Corey. It'll be a rematch of last year's final. AFC Toronto visiting the Vancouver Rise. More than 1 million people tuned in last November to see the Rise beat Toronto in the NSL's inaugural championship game. And league co-founder Diana Matheson says that was just one of many signs women's sport in this country is set to boom.
And we're just getting started. And we're already driving hundreds of millions of dollars into the Canadian economy from this. Canadian women's pro sport can be $1 billion industry by 2030. We can build one of the best women's sport economies in the world. We talk to the PW and WNBA Canada all the time about how we can make sure we're accelerating that growth in Canada. Sport's pretty cool in that it has that economic impact, but of course, all the things that sport does, from inspiration, health outcomes, jobs for women in sport, all fantastic impact.
Yeah, Matheson says, Corey, the league expects to announce the addition of its 7th team very soon, and she hinted to me in our discussion it would be based in the prairies, saying she wants the NSL's presence to be nationwide. She's obviously a good friend and former teammate of the Destroyer, Desiree Scott, who you would think if a team was to come to Winnipeg, Desiree would be part of things, although she said not on the playing field. Matheson said to me that an announcement about a 7th franchise for this league would come, she thought, before the World Cup, which is, 48 days away? Maybe Winnipeggers are going to get some good news here.
We're hoping. We just had Christina Litz, actually, the president, who is a Winnipegger herself, on the show, and she said she didn't quite say yes or no, but it felt promising. It was hard to read. Yeah, I was reading between the lines, but looking forward to that announcement. And I think a lot of Winnipeggers are crossing their fingers. So thank you very much, Scott.
It'd be pretty cool to see. You bet.
That is Scott Regehr with your morning sports. Keep in mind, we do have a highway closure to 391 between Leaf Rapids and Lynn Lake this morning due to poor conditions. Also, all schools in the Mystery Lake School Division are closed in Thompson this morning, as well as in the DSFM École Voie du Nord. Time now for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 2 degrees, an abrupt cool down from our little taste of summer we had earlier this week. We're actually cooler than seasonal. The normal high is 14 today. We're hoping for an 11. It's going to be windy as well with a mix of sun and clouds. Communities along the Fisher River continue to hold their breath. That river is expected to crest today in Peguis First Nation. Sandbagging and other flood protection measures have been happening for the past 2 weeks. Chief Stan Bird says people in Peguis seem confident about their preparations.
We're waiting. We're waiting to see how quickly the water comes up, how the sandbags hold up, and whether more evacuations are required.
Downriver in Fisher River Cree Nation, Chief David Crate says things also look good.
We're in a hold pattern right now, I'll say, because we've been fortunate. What's happened here is we've had cold weather set in at nighttime, which is really good. That's something we wanted. This was, when I say cold weather, I'm talking below zero. We've had that type of weather in the last few days, so that helped drop the water level.
Crate says some 40 homes are being protected by a combination of sandbags, super sandbags, and tiger dams. Now, the Assiniboine River also continues to be under a flood warning. The province's latest hydrologic forecast says snowmelt water is passing through the system, and provincial staff are supporting preparations for potential flooding in a number of communities in the parkland. A woman who fatally stabbed a 19-year-old after an argument at her Winnipeg home has been sentenced to 6 years. Bené C. Kennedy died in January 2024. CBC's Caitlin Garlick has details.
Court heard the argument between Bené Kennedy and Anna Marie Hanska broke out after both had been drinking. Hanska kicked Kennedy out of her home and said she'd kill him if he came back. When he returned minutes later, Hanska stabbed him. Court heard she was then beaten and thrown from the home by others who were there. Hanska ended up in the hospital for days. In a victim impact statement, Kennedy's mother said she's now lost 3 of her children, including a teenage daughter who died in a rollover and another son who killed himself. Hanska, who's now 48, was initially charged with second-degree murder. She pleaded down to manslaughter, in part because of her extreme intoxication when she killed Kennedy. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is dismissing reports the U.S. is demanding concessions before talks on CUSMA can begin, saying he's heard nothing about a, quote, entry fee. The PM insisting Canada is not taking direction from Washington as tensions rise over trade. He pushed back after U.S. officials complained about so-called irritants, arguing the real issue is tariffs hitting key Canadian industries like steel, aluminum, autos, and forestry. A U.S. Special Forces soldier involved in the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is facing charges of insider trading. Gannon Ken Van Dyke was involved in the planning and execution of the January raid. Weeks before, he allegedly bet on the betting website Polymarket Maduro would be removed from power. President Donald Trump is comparing that incident to a 1980s baseball controversy.
That's like Pete Rose betting on his own team. It's a little like Pete Rose. Pete Rose, they kept him out of the Hall of Fame because he bet on his own team. Now, if he bet against his team, that would be no good, but he bet on his own team. I'll look into it.
Van Dyke allegedly made $400,000 from his bets. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Well, some Manitoba municipalities want a better deal when it comes to paying for policing. Reeves and mayors at the Association of Manitoba Municipalities Convention in Brandon are calling for a better contract for our CMP services. The Paul mayor, Andre Murphy, says those costs add up fast. His community pays more than $3 million a year for policing because it covers 70% of that bill, with the rest paid by Ottawa.
We have great relationships, but it's just when it comes to that, as on the municipal side, when we look at the costs coming in, we need to try to figure out a way of how we're going to manage this for the future.
Murphy would like to see costs split to an even 50-50. Federal cost-sharing police contracts are negotiated every 20 years. The current contracts expire in 2032. You can find the latest Manitoba news throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Just a quick mention of the school closures right now that we know of. So up in Thompson, the school district of Mystery Lake, all schools are closed today because of that poor weather going on right now. Same thing with École Voie du Nord, which is also in Thompson in the DSFM. Abby Adiemi is in with a look at your weather, which lots of weather warnings going on up north this morning.
Definitely. It's not I wouldn't call it a winter storm. This is more like a spring storm, bringing blizzards and winter-like conditions to the northern parts of the province. And if you look at the south, just more like breezy conditions with a mix of sun and clouds. This blizzard we're talking about are active across a whole chunk of northern Manitoba. Dangerous system bringing in zero visibility and heavy accumulations to most of the regions. We are talking about blizzard around Lynn Lake, Gillam, Tudela Lake. We're expecting up to 50 centimeters of snow and a speed of wind gusts up to 70, 80 expected in that region. While for the heavy snow, we're looking at those active around Flin Flon at this time. And also we're seeing freezing rain in the mix. So for that region, you should get about 15 centimeters of snow added to what you're getting. Up not towards Tudela Lake, we're expecting about 50 once the system comes through. Then you see freezing rain around Thompson and Norway House, where heavy ice build up, really making roads impassable. So please avoid all travels if necessary in these regions. Looking down south, it's currently 2 degrees at the Forks. Partly cloudy skies. We're expecting a mix of sun and clouds today with windy conditions up to 50 kilometers later in the day. Temperatures will reach a high of 11 before falling to 0 tonight. And tomorrow looks bright with sunny conditions and we get close to 10 degrees. Similar conditions across the southern regions, hovering near 1 degree at this time. And most regions will get close to 12 degrees later. Then up north, where we're experiencing these extreme disruptions, for Flin Flon, we're looking at temperatures around -3, heavy snow falling there. Thompson, dealing with ice build up and freezing rain, and of course we're seeing temperatures around -3. And then far north, Gillam to Tudela Lake, frigid at this time, -5, -9 depending on where you are. In Churchill, we're seeing light snow and blowing snow. Temperatures will warm up to -4 later. So up north, it's more like winter-like conditions as we are trying to get into summer, still in the spring feel vibe down south. Mild conditions, and we should see some winds. Winnipeg currently 2 degrees under partly cloudy skies, heading for a high close to 11, 12 later in the day.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That is Abby Adiemi behind the glass. Sierra Sanders, what's going on with the commute?
Still pretty quiet here in the city so far, Corey. Haven't gotten any calls on the commuter line. So to me, that sounds like things are moving along smoothly on your Friday commute today, as well as the surrounding areas of Winnipeg. But I think the main story today, as Abby's been talking about all morning, are those weather systems that are moving throughout the north. We are already seeing one highway closure. That is Highway 391 from Leaf Rapids to Lynn Lake. That highway is closed due to those highway conditions starting to decline as those weather systems move through the north. Highway 10 still seems to be the big issue today. That is being reported by Manitoba 511 as covered. It looks like the plows are out, so those plows are working to get things clear if you are driving on that highway. So in the Thompson area, Mystery Lake, Paint Lake area there, as well as Nelson House, we are seeing those highways being reported as covered. So just a reminder to check Manitoba 511 if you are planning to get out on those highways up there today, so you can keep up to date with current conditions and and any situations going on out there. Despite things being a little bit quiet this morning, if something does pop up on your commute today, I'd love to hear about it, whether you are here in the city or out on the highways, or maybe you're up north and you want to let me know what you're seeing out there. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. That is Sierra Sanders, our CBC studio director. Well, up next year on Information Radio, Vancouver-based composer Pat Carabray's music explores large vistas and natural settings. And in his latest album, he focuses on the Red River area here in Manitoba, which is where he grew up. Pat was adopted during the 60s scoop, and the album is also a way for him to connect with his ancestors. And he sat down with CBC's Caroline Chan in Vancouver at UBC's Chan Center.
I've always felt the need to ground myself in the land. A lot of my music is about the place where I live, and for most of that was Manitoba. So I've written an awful lot of pieces about snow and the prairie and the sky and the wind and the stars and all of that kind of stuff. My name is Pat Carabray, and I'm a composer and citizen of the Red River Métis, and I'm director here at the Chan Center for the Performing Arts at UBC.
And you have a new album out.
I do, and it's called Red River, after the sonata of that name that is the lead thing on the album. And I really wanted this piece to reflect the many characters of the Red River that I know and love so well. So lots of different ideas in it, big ones, small ones, slow ones, fast ones. But yeah, to provide the feeling about living in that space and how my ancestors, who'd been there since, long before it was part of Canada, how they lived in it, and all the different relationships that they had with the land.
Well, I want to explore that a little bit, because you later in life found out that you were Métis because you were part of the 60s scoop. How does that influence the music that we hear in Red River?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you're an adopted person, and I knew from the time I could remember anything that I was adopted and had a wonderful family, and grew up in a neighborhood and a culture that still had many Métis people in it, and so you go, like, my adopted parents would say, well, you're French. And in Manitoba, that kind of likely means you're Métis, but you can't claim anything, So it wasn't until DNA tests, and then they opened the birth records, that I could see my original birth certificate. So that's been a really wonderful thing. My birth mom has passed, but I got to spend a couple of years with her. I have 4 wonderful sisters who live there. We also have another brother who was adopted out. I'm going to go visit him in Slovenia this summer, because he was adopted by a family that moved to Canada from Slovenia. When I started going to Manitoba Métis Federation meetings in Brandon, a good quarter of the folks showing up had just been finding out because the adoption records were opened, or people were now starting to feel like they could ask grandma, and my birth mom said, well, I tried to say I was Métis when I was a kid and I got smacked for it. My parents told me, don't tell anybody that, that's not good for you, because there was so much discrimination, and it was a pretty rough life. I mean, Métis are known for hiding in plain sight because we pass white, many of us, so it's been great for me to be reconnected to my birth family.
And Red River is also dedicated to your son.
It is. I'm such a lucky person. He had been hired for a concert out here, and he never asked me, but the people who organized the concert said, you want to write a piece for your son, don't you? I said, I guess I can't really say no, can I? And I love his playing. He's a wonderful player, and I hadn't written anything for him since he was, like about 8 years old, so it was great fun. aside from the fact that I was usually in the kitchen cooking dinner while he was practicing, I've heard him play a lot of music, right? So it really was great fun for me to give him some melodic and rhythmic ideas that I thought he would have fun with and that really represented some of the things that we share.
I have to ask you about artificial intelligence. As a composer, with all this music in your head,
yeah,
what do you make of, you can ask an artificial intelligence to make you a song?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we were talking a lot about it here at the university because AI is a pretty important thing for the way forward. We also talk a lot about ethical AI, where you train the AI not on a large language model, but on a set focus of something that you want it to think about. And I do have a couple of colleagues who use it on a pretty regular basis, but they'll have a musical idea. Then they'll feed it into AI and say, try this, try that, try the other thing. It'll do it. And then they go, yeah, that one sucked. This one's pretty good. That's kind of an interesting idea. Maybe I'll go back and think about it. So I think it's like an assistant. Like right now, it's my wife's job. I play it for her and I say, what do you think, dear? And she says, yeah, I think you need to fix this.
What would you say to somebody who's like, I don't do classical music?
At the risk of being a bit reductionist, I would say, I'll quote Leonard Bernstein, who was quoting Duke Ellington, say there's two kinds of music. There's good music and bad music, and it doesn't really matter all the other stuff. You will find good music in every genre, on every instrument, and you just have to take that chance. So I think it's worth a try. I think it's worth a try. And honestly, cello and piano, there's some beautiful stuff there.
That was composer Pat Carabray speaking with CBC's Caroline Chan at UBC's Chan Center in Vancouver. His new album is called Red River. It's out today, and it's available wherever you stream your music. Well, 7:46 right now, and as mentioned earlier, it was a big night for Manitoba hockey yesterday. First off, a Manitoba team is the best team in Saskatchewan right now. The Flin Flon Bombers bested the Yorkton Terriers last night 2-0 to win the SJHL. We're actually going to talk later on with our Flin Flon reporter who drove all the way to Yorkton through a snowstorm to catch that game. So he's going to be joining us after 8. But right now, though, there's a first for everything, like winning your franchise's first ever Manitoba Junior Hockey League championship. Last night, the Niverville Nighthawks secured their first Turnbull Cup after beating the Verdun Oil Capitals 4-2. Yes, those are the sounds of the Nighthawks after the final buzzer last night. The team swept the series against the Oil Capitals, and Clarence Braun is the president of the Niverville Nighthawks and the former mayor of Niverville. Good morning and congrats.
Good morning, Corey. Thank you for taking time to talk to us this morning.
Well, thanks for waking up early. I imagine it was a bit of a late night for you.
It was. I think we got 2 hours sleep, but we're all good.
Good. Well, thanks for joining us here. So take us through the game. What stood out to you about last night's game?
Well, for us, it's been a journey that we've been in the league 4 years, and we made the playoffs every year. We had a goal to win a series. We had a goal to win the Turnbull Cup. We had a goal to go to the Centennial Cup and win. And this was the year we won our first series. We beat Verdun 4-0 in the opening round, and we got to the second round 5-1 against Wayway and ended up against Verdun, and were able to take them in 4 straight. And, there was a collective resolve in the group from the beginning of the season that there was something they wanted to accomplish. And you know what? They carried it. They carried it from the beginning of the year. I mean, we lost. In a 58-game schedule, we won 51 games this year. And in the playoffs, we went 12-1 in 13 games. And so, yeah, the resolve within the players, the buy-in, the care for each other, wanting to see each other successful, not having any, jealousy and that kind of thing towards one another on the team. It was a very together team. And I just came back from uptown and I saw 6 of them walking up to Smitty's, from taking the Turnbull Cup for breakfast at Smitty's this morning. So that was awesome.
And what did it take to get here? Like you said, for 4 years you've been working towards this. What's the journey been like?
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. We started our first conversations with the MJ back in 2005 as we saw Niverville beginning to grow. And then when we got an announcement of our new building back in 2017, I believe it was, we expanded on that. The town had grown to about 6,000 people at the time, and we thought we could do it. And I just have to say, we had 66 founders step up, each put $10,000 in, and $10,000 that they were never going to get back. It was just it was an investment in the community. And since that time, we had to add, all the support mechanisms that it takes. Obviously, as founders, we don't know how to run a hockey team, but surrounding ourselves with people like Mike McCauley, our general manager, Dwight Hurst, our coach. These people got it done. They're the ones, they're experts in their field, and hockey ops did an incredible job. And, we've had volunteer coordinators. A team like ours operates with about 80 volunteers in a given season. And a wonderful lady by the name of Fran Giesbrecht, she's been with us for 4 years, and she manages that side of it. And you have 20 billet family homes that care for these guys for 6 months of the year. And, Heather Wallace does a wonderful job there. And, of course, our fans, absolutely amazing. We had a couple of, probably 250 people from Niverville in the building in Verdun last night. And, the team just wanted to honor the volunteers last night. And so we chartered a bus for the volunteers that they could go and actually watch a game and not have to, be running around doing their stuff. We paid for their tickets and their way out there, and it was just a wonderful reward for them. And to see, a couple of hundred people on the ice with the players means we've come full circle. It is a community-owned, not-for-profit team, and the community was on the ice to celebrate together with them when they won.
And a big win, but the job isn't done now, right? The team heads to Prince Edward Island in May for the Nationals. So what's the mindset of the team? Is the gear up for that?
Yeah, I just talked to a couple of the boys this morning, and they feel there's still some unfinished business. Manitoba has not won the Centennial Cup since Portage last did it, I believe, in 2015. So we've got our job ahead of us, but we've been ranked number 2 in Canada for the better part. Well, we were ranked number 1 for 2 weeks, but for the rest of the season, we've been ranked number 2 in Canada out of 116 teams for the entire year. So we feel like we're competitive. We feel like we're good to go, and the players are really, really excited about the opportunity before them.
Well, we'll be watching closely come May. We'll be cheering you on. And congrats once again. I'll let you get back to sleep. I know it's been a long, probably long night, but also a long season because you've been traveling with the team. So I'll let you get some rest.
Thank you so much, Corey, for taking time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. That is Clarence Braun. He's president of the Niverville Nighthawks and the former mayor of Niverville. His team are the Turnbull Cup champions after completing the sweep of the Verdun Oil Capitals last night. The Nighthawks head to Summerside, Prince Edward Island to compete for a national championship at the Centennial Cup from May 7th to 17th. Well, up next here on CBC Radio 1, it is 7:53 here, and at the Forks right now we are sitting at 2 degrees, and Brandon, right now you're sitting at -1. Thompson, you're sitting at -3 right now with a freezing rain orange warning in effect, and all schools in the Mystery Lake School Division closed today due to poor weather. Well, more than 60 residents from a Manitoba housing building have been evacuated to hotels. On Monday, a unit at 444 Kennedy Street in Winnipeg caught on fire. And police say an investigation is ongoing after a person was found dead in the building. And for some of the tenants, it is still unclear when and if they will return home. CBC Santiago Arias Orozco spoke to a few of them yesterday.
My name is Carolyn LaRiviere. We were getting free haircuts that day. There's a lady who comes, Hannah. And I was downstairs sort of setting up for her and waiting when the alarm went off. I've been in that building for 6-7 fires. We've never had to leave it. So I just was going to sit down at the lounge window, and bam, the window blew out and fell on the ground just behind me. scared the heck out of me. So I thought, well, maybe the window's not a very safe place to be. So I moved away from there, but then all hell broke loose. I was caught downstairs, so I went up with the TSC. I had 3 inches of water in my whole apartment when I went back to get my stuff and my cat.
How do you feel?
Stressed. A constant crick in my neck from the stress. We're just stuck in a hotel at the airport strip, and I can't get anywhere because I can only walk so far. I moved in there April 4th, 2013.
So 13 years.
13 years.
How have those 13 years been?
Whew, up and down. I'm hoping Rent Assist is going to actually help and that I can find a place somewhere else. And I hope for everybody who's stuck in housing that something changes. There's quite obviously there was no kind of a contingency plan for an emergency evacuation.
I'm Stevie Dick. I feel unhappy, but what could you do? It's a fire. I'm hoping to go back soon, yes, but they said a couple weeks, so which is making me feel kind of uneasy because I'm way out of my comfort zone, I guess you would say.
I'm assuming you don't live, like you live over the building, so everything is close by over there.
Yeah, everything's convenient.
And here?
It's like further away from my family and harder to come to.
Daryl Clausen, like I don't understand that. They didn't go on the intercom once to let us know what was going on. It's like, oh, the smoke's up here. I guess there is a fire. And then my friend was in the front street and she took video and she sent it to me and saying, this is what's going on in your building. I was like, I still don't know. Like, the fire department's not going on the intercom. So that's an ongoing thing. No, not once that there was a fire. We had to, like, smell it.
How long were you there until you think?
I was upstairs for a good 2 hours before I self-evacuated, I think. Well, over an hour anyways. It felt like 2 hours probably, yeah.
But still, like, you were not told you had to evacuate?
No. And my manager's telling me I should be evacuating normally all the time, but there's people pulling alarms at all hours in here, so I'm not gonna go out in the street at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, not knowing if there's a fire. Because if I could get halfway down the stairs and there's a fire lower down, I'm stuck, right? So they just don't get, like, they don't live here. They go back to their fancy little lives. And
Are you still staying there?
Yeah, for the meantime, until they can, yeah, probably till the end of the month, I guess.
Were you given the choice of evacuating? Like,
No. It's just focus on everybody that's got water damage, and then, but other people on my floor asked to be housed in a hotel, and they said no. I don't want to see another fire in here when I move away and people die.
That was CBC's Santiago Arias Orozco speaking to residents from 444 Kennedy Street. In a statement to CBC from the province, it said, quote, affected tenants have been relocated temporarily to hotel accommodations, and Manitoba Housing remains in regular contact with them to provide supports and updates. Residents will continue to be supported with accommodations and meals until they are able to return home. Timelines for residents to return to the building are still being determined. Some units require extensive repairs, and residents will need to be relocated to other available units, unquote. 7:58 right now, and still to come here on Information Radio. We heard Alberta is the most recent province to stop changing its clocks. So we went to the Assiniboine Park to hear what Manitobans want to see. And we're also going to speak to a professor who wrote a book on the origins of daylight savings. And no, it has nothing to do with cows. We're going to hear more about that coming up later on. But right now, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Morning. Well, today's the day. After 2 weeks of preparing for an expected flood, the Fisher River is expected to crest today in Peguis First Nation. Chief Stan Bird says instead of chaos and frustration of past flood years, there's a sense of confidence knowing a lot of homes are protected. At Fisher River Cree Nation downstream, Chief David Crate says things are looking good as major rain forecast for that area did not happen. Some Manitoba municipalities want a better deal when it comes to policing. They're talking at the Association of Manitoba Municipalities in Brandon. We'll hear more coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. We'll be back after World Report.
on cue.
Peace and love, peace and love.
Now that he's in his 80s, Ringo Starr is starting to look back. In a rare conversation, he'll tell you about getting the call to join the Beatles, how he almost moved to Texas right before that, getting his first ever drum set, and his new album, all about his deep love of country music.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
For a long time, working in bars and restaurants has been seen as a starter job, maybe a way to pay your way through school. That might be starting to change, though. Why Canadians are starting to see the service and hospitality industries as long-term career paths. Coming up on The Current.
Is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. We begin in the Middle East. Iranian negotiators are reportedly heading to Pakistan for peace talks, even as Washington expands its blockade on Tehran. U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is now warning that no ship will leave the Strait of Hormuz without American permission. Against that backdrop, President Trump has announced a 3-week ceasefire extension in Lebanon. But as Chris Brown reports from Beirut, the bombs are still falling.
From northern Israel, photographers can see the IDF bombs hitting Lebanese villages across the border in what Israel calls its new security zone. The agreement to extend the ceasefire for 3 weeks doesn't mean peace, only that the area of combat in Lebanon has supposedly shrunk to this southern area. At least 7 people in Lebanon, including a prominent journalist, have been killed in the past 48 hours, and Hezbollah has also fired into Israel for the first time since the ceasefire. Ignoring all that, Donald Trump nonetheless predicted everything will work out.
I think there's a very good chance of having peace. I think it should be an easy one relative to some of the things we're working on.
The Lebanese government is meant to ensure Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militant group, abides by the ceasefire. But in the southern Shia communities, there's little faith Lebanon's government has their best interests. There's no word that Israel has accepted key demands from Lebanon to stop demolishing villages and to pull back across the border. Trump didn't mention that either, and instead pushed a potential meeting between Lebanon's president and Israel's prime minister.
I think we'll do it during this period of time, during the 3-week period, ideally.
Lebanon appears to be slow-walking that. It's hard to see President Joseph Aoun shaking hands with an Israeli leader who occupies dozens of communities in his country. Chris Brown, CBC News, Beirut.
Canada's top military commander is in Kyiv this morning, offering a message of reassurance to Ukraine as the NATO alliance faces internal pressure. The chief of the defense staff is attending the Kyiv Security Forum amid ongoing criticism of the alliance from the Trump administration. Murray Brewster has the story.
It was very important that we clarify that NATO unity is absolutely strong.
Canada's Chief of the Defence Staff, General Jenny Carignan, thrust into the role of diplomat. Politically, it's been a tough year for NATO. First, U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to annex Greenland from allied Denmark, something that could have potentially blown the alliance apart. Now, Trump's rage over NATO's refusal to join the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. Behind the scenes, European allies are reportedly quietly exploring a fallback plan in case Washington steps back from NATO. Carignan says she's not seen evidence of a U.S. exit, at least from a military standpoint.
I don't see it from my perspective. We are always managing on everybody's contribution and realigning our plans and responding to various crisis situations.
And watching all of this, the Ukrainians, who've pinned their security hopes on joining NATO for years. Meanwhile, Canada's training mission for Ukrainian forces is evolving. Often focused on instructing raw recruits in basic soldiering, Carignan says they're going to be doing something a little different.
What we have done recently is focus our efforts toward training trainers.
Many Ukrainian commanders have made it clear, after 4 years of war with Russia, their soldiers have way more battlefield experience than allies. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
Proposed legislation to legalize assisted dying in England and Wales will not become law. The House of Lords failed to pass the bill despite it being approved nearly a year ago by British MPs. Crystal Gamansing has more from London.
I am despondent.
Before his colleagues in the House of Lords, Charlie Faulkner said the terminally ill adults end-of-life bill failed not on its merits, but because of procedural wranglings. More than 1,000 amendments were made in the House of Lords, and it never made it out of the committee stage.
The suggestion that members of Parliament did not deeply interrogate this bill in the other place is profoundly mistaken.
Tanny Gray-Thompson is one of those in the unelected upper chamber who disagrees.
It's a poorly written bill. It was written in haste.
Backbench MP Kim Leadbeater was the one who brought forward the private members' bill.
It's just upsetting and it's disappointing.
Last June, MPs voted 314 to 291 in favor of granting terminally ill adults with less than 6 months to live the right to end their own lives by lethal injection, on the approval of 2 doctors and an expert panel.
It's not over.
Pamela from West Yorkshire has terminal breast cancer. She attended a small rally by the advocacy group Dignity in Dying before today's final session in the House of Lords.
We shall fight for as long as it takes, and I'm absolutely certain that in the end we will be successful.
Efforts are now underway to have MPs work together and bring back the legislation for the next session of Parliament. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
A climate conference in Colombia is tackling a topic that many United Nations summits have avoided. Delegates from dozens of nations, including Canada, are meeting in Santa Marta to discuss a total move away from fossil fuels. Science reporter Anand Ram explains.
The seaside city of Santa Marta, Colombia. Breezy beaches filled with tourists in the shadow of beautiful mountains. Idyllic, not really where you'd want to discuss the most serious threat to the planet. But it's here for the first time discussions about climate change will center on its root cause, fossil fuels. And the hope is to not be like the United Nations climate conferences.
That process is a consensus-based process. So 190 countries have to agree on every word.
Zephyra Berman is the founder of the Fossil Fuel Treaty Initiative, a coalition of groups focused on getting nations off oil and gas. Thing is, not every nation wants that.
For decades, Saudi Arabia and other countries have ensured that there is no substantive conversation on fossil fuel phase-out.
There is no mitigation if we cannot discuss.
But last year, frustrations pushed some countries to want to meet again for concrete ideas to move away from fossil fuels.
It's not a debate whether to phase out fossil fuels, but really about how and how to do it together.
Nikki Reich is with the Center for International Environmental Law and is in Santa Marta. She sees a role for oil and gas at this table, including Canada, the largest attendee.
It's in their interest to reduce continued reliance on fossil fuels going forward.
The outcome next week won't be a negotiated treaty, but to get the bold ideas discussed at this important side chat into the main conversation later this year at COP31. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
A northern Alberta community is on high alert this morning as a state of local emergency remains in effect for Peace River. A massive ice jam upstream has put the town's entire downtown core at risk of sudden, unpredictable flooding. Residents are being told to have emergency kits ready and vehicles fueled, with the warning they may have to evacuate at a moment's notice. Officials say the ice buildup could cause water levels to spike in seconds. And finally, last month we brought you the story of an Ontario couple facing a $300,000 mandatory investigation after Indigenous ancestral remains were found on their property. Since that story aired, more Ontario homeowners in the same situation have come forward, including one couple facing a bill that could reach $500,000. Kimberly Evany reports.
Two locals walking the shoreline of Wolfe Island, Ontario, discovered a human skull in a sandy bank in April 2006. More Indigenous ancestral remains were found there, but the burial site was never investigated. Today, new homeowners Dave and Cheryl Van Hall are saddled with a provincial order to complete the inquiry.
Why are we paying for that one?
100 kilometers west in Prince Edward County, J&D Kettle discovered ancestral remains last summer during renovations. An archaeologist estimates the provincially mandated investigation could cost $500,000.
I don't sleep at night. My mind is always going 1,000 miles a minute.
CBC News has learned of 5 other homeowners navigating Ontario rules around ancestral remains discoveries. A growing number of Indigenous and non-Indigenous experts and homeowners say the rules take the onus off the government in addressing the matter.
There's just so much responsibility that's being shirked.
Terry Lynn Brennan is an archaeologist in Ontario who is of Mohawk, Tuscarora, and British heritage.
This is a situation that has deeper roots than homeowners. This has got more to do with land rights. And there is no way within the current system to make any of this right.
CBC News has repeatedly asked Ontario Premier Doug Ford if he would change the current law. His office has never responded. Kimberly Aveney, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Spring-like down south, very wintry up north. We're going to get all the details you need to know about all those blizzard, freezing snow, freezing rain warnings up north this morning. That's coming up. But also this half hour on the show, at one point or another, we've all speculated about why we have daylight saving time. But do we really know? You probably said something like, I think it's something to do with the cows. Well, after Alberta decided to quit springing ahead and falling back, we're going to speak with someone who wrote a book on the topic, and you'll be surprised to hear it has nothing to do with the cows. We're also going to hear what Winnipeggers want to see done about daylight saving time. Also, the best hockey team in Saskatchewan is from Manitoba. The Flin Flon Bombers bested the Yorkton Terriers yesterday to win the SJHL, and our Flin Flon reporter drove through a snowstorm to Yorkton to cover that game. He's going to join us to talk about that coming up later this half hour as well. But right now at 8:11, let's chat with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, communities along the Fisher River are holding their breath. The Fisher River is expected to crest today in Peguis First Nation. Sandbagging and other flood protection measures have been ongoing for the past 2 weeks. The chief there says people in Peguis seem confident. Downriver in Fisher River Cree Nation, Chief David Crate says things also look good. Now, the Assiniboine River is continuing to be under a flood warning. The latest hydrologic forecast from the province says staff are supporting preparations for potential flooding in a number of communities in the parkland. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adiyemi, I think we've had spring, summer, and winter all within a 24-hour period here in Manitoba.
I tell you that, Corey. Now, while the south is seeing this mild and windy spring day, there's the massive storm we're still tracking up north, making travel a chaos as you travel towards the northern part of the province this morning, especially those towards Flin Flon. Earlier, we had the heavy snow. Now, there's a transition to freezing rain falling there. Hence, this dangerous weather splits. In effect, we're tracking blizzard warnings towards Lynn Lake and Tudula Lake. We're blowing snow and north-east gusts up to 80 kilometers, really creating near zero visibility for that region. And then further south in the central northern regions, freezing rain is a thing. It's really active towards Norway House this morning, and we see it come towards the park, bringing heavy ice build up and extreme dangerous conditions if you're on the road. So take it easy. But for Winnipeg, currently 3 degrees right now, partly sunny out there. We're heading to a mild high of 11 with a mix of sun and clouds in the play. Expect windy afternoon as the winds will be coming from the southwest, gusting all the way to 50. For the north, we're looking at temperatures between 0 and 3 and also mainly sunny conditions. Dauphin really enjoying some sunshine at this time, but up north, it's more about blizzard, storm zones, freezing rain. So it's more like a massive system in the northern part of the province, getting everything there, but no sunshine in the mix. So take it easy if you're on the road. But for Winnipeg, we're warming up to 11 today under partly sunny skies. Current temperatures at 3 degrees in the city.
And much as 30 to 50 centimeters of snow way up north around Lynn Lake. So we'll see what comes of that. Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That is Abby Adeyemi. Sierra Sanders, what does this all mean for the commute?
So up north, you will be encountering some covered highways. You might encounter some highways that are being reported with reduced visibility as well. We are seeing that on Highway 10 heading north near Flin Flon, Cranberry Portage, those areas there. And then Highway 10 up by Thompson there, we're also seeing highways being reported as covered there due to those weather systems that are moving through the northern part of the province. So you want to keep that in mind if you are heading out up north or you are up there right now. Be cautious, be aware, and adjust your driving to those conditions. The plows are out, though, up north, so they are working hard to keep those highways clear for you. Turning to the city here, down here in Winnipeg, got a couple of calls on the commuter line. Got a call from Naomi, northbound Route 90. There's a stalled vehicle in the middle lane just before Grant there. When she called, she had said it just happened, so it wasn't quite backed up yet, but she was saying it might happen there as that is a busy area during the morning rush hour. So northbound Route 90, stalled vehicle in the middle lane there just before Grant. As well, got a call from Margaret. The North Maryland Bridge, so as you're coming off of Academy and heading on to the bridge, just as you're coming off the bridge, there's a stalled vehicle in the left curb lane there, so you would have to go right to pass. She mentioned it was kind of causing a little bit of confusion as it came up a little fast for drivers and folks having to go right to pass there. So situations happening here in the city, situations happening up there in the north. The number to call if there is something that is getting in your way. We have a little bit of time left in the show. The number is 204-788-3093.
Well, the governments of both Alberta and Northwest Territories announced on Monday they will no longer be changing their clocks twice a year. Instead, they will stick with daylight time, which is what we're on right now. So more light at the end of the day instead of the morning will be the norm. The moves follow a similar decision made by the British Columbia government last month and has many Manitobans wondering, are we next? Premier Wab Kinew hinted the province is considering putting a stop to changing the clocks and said it plans to survey Manitobans on what they'd like to see. So we decided to do our own little survey, just on a much smaller scale. CBC's Jim Agapito spoke with some Winnipeggers at Assiniboine Park yesterday.
Brenda Helgeson.
Would you be in favor of Manitoba sticking with one time?
Definitely.
And why is that?
Because all the other provinces would be a little close to us then and not changed. I prefer that because we're day people. We like to go out during the day, but we're usually not out at 9:30. But I mean, it would be cooler in the morning then for longer periods so that we could walk maybe. I don't know. Which is the standard and which isn't. But that's the standard. Yeah, I would still be in favor of the standard. Yeah.
Daniel Helgeson. I'm in favor of finding one fixed time. I do kind of like the daylight savings time like BC has done, but I would be good the other way too. It'd just be nice not having to change back and forth and just fix one time and just go with it.
Does the time change disrupt, your livelihood? I'm curious.
If we were working, but we're retired now, so yeah, we just go with the flow. As opposed to arriving, I'm kind of in favor of the savings time, daylight savings, because with a little bit earlier in the morning, I'm up before she is, and I like to watch the sun come up. And so 7:30 is my time to get up. I'd like that better.
My name's Carter Knight.
Carter, do you think Manitoba should stick to one time zone?
No.
Why is that?
I think in the winters, when I'm driving around in December, I love looking at the Christmas lights. And it's like, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock? Man, I love when the lights are glimmering, shimmering at dinner time. It's great. But July, I feel like I love when the sun is out longer. You know what I mean? Go for a walk, see the sun setting. It's the best. It's awesome.
So you think we should stick to what we have right now?
Yes. I feel like some people care a lot just because, must be the 1 hour sleep thing that people are losing. They're like, man, it's ruining my whole week. But then you get one extra hour, right? So I don't know. I feel like some people care, some people don't. I don't really care. But yeah, I feel like the Christmas lights are a big seller for me.
Thomas Malone.
Would you be in favor of Manitoba sticking to one time?
Sure, it does not matter to me. It'd be nice to have a longer evening with daylight, now that you mention it. Yeah.
So you would be in favor of sticking to what we have right now?
Yes, if that would mean a longer daylight in the evening, yes.
When you're working, did it bother you?
Yes. Yes and no. In the harsh winter, you're getting up and going to work when it's dark, and you're coming home when it's dark if you work an office job during the daytime. So that was the thing that bothered me the most about the time. It would have been nice to have had more daylight after I got home from work, just to enjoy it. So I'm not sure which way that would mean in terms of daylight savings time.
That's Jim Agapito speaking with Winnipeggers at Assiniboine Park yesterday. But how did we even get here in the first place? Chad Orzel joins us now to explain the origins and history of daylight saving time. He's an associate professor of physics and astronomy at Union College in Schenectady, New York, and the author of A Brief History of Timekeeping, the Science of Marking Time from Stonehenge to Atomic Clocks. I spoke with him at 7.
Morning.
So there are plenty of rumors for why we have daylight saving time. I've heard, usually people speculate, they say something to do with the cows is what often I hear. So origin stories range from, farming to Benjamin Franklin to saving candle wax. How did the practice of daylight saving actually begin?
Yeah, the modern origin is in World War I, where people noticed that there's a war going on, and they're using a bunch of fuel to generate light, some of which is generate electricity, some of which is being used for artificial lighting, and they could cut back on the fuel being used for that by pushing the clocks back so that sunset happened an hour later, which reduced the need for people to be burning electric lights. So this started in Europe during World War I and was pretty widely adopted by everybody who was involved in that. Was intermittently observed between the wars, came back in full in World War II for the same reasons, and then people just sort of hung on to it after the war. And by the 1960s, it got codified as sort of a general practice. Every year we do this spring forward, fall back thing so that the sun sets an hour later in the summer than it would if we were just on the sort of Greenwich Standard Time.
Okay. So now in recent years, and actually recent months, we've been seeing more places choosing to remain on daylight saving time, Alberta being the latest, also BC just before then, as well as the Northwest Territories. So why do you think we're seeing people reject the time change now in particular?
I think it's people are annoyed by the changing of the clocks, right? So particularly the spring forward one, where suddenly everything happens an hour earlier the next day and you lose an hour of sleep. People are less upset about the one in the fall where you get a bonus hour of sleep on a Saturday night. I think it's just the internet has made it much easier for people who are annoyed by things to find each other and sort of rally together and form a coalition to push for something to be different. I also would say, the arguments about energy savings are somewhat less important these days because, in the summer, the main thing that we're using electricity for is no longer artificial lighting. It's probably much more electricity is going into air conditioning than artificial lighting, and that would be you would reduce the need for that if everybody went to bed an hour earlier, but right. It doesn't make as much of a difference as it used to.
In terms of the logistical challenges, when neighboring provinces or states each make their own decisions about keeping or abandoning daylight saving times, what are some of the concerns that maybe keep people from changing because of those logistical challenges?
The challenge is, when the change happens in one place and not another, you have this discombobulation that comes from people not quite knowing what time it is on the other end of a phone call or some sort of business arrangement, and that makes things awkward. This happens every year. The time change happens in North America at one time and in Europe at a different time, and so there's like a week or two where the time difference between the U.S. and Great Britain is different, and if you do business across the Atlantic, any transactions you have to conduct, you're a little confused for a few days there. That's another thing that technology has made a lot easier, right? Because these things all get, everybody's appointments are on, some sort of internet calendar now, and that just kind of automatically updates, and you still get the notification at the right time, which is now a different time in a different place.
So we had a cardiologist actually on the show a little while back when we were talking about this earlier when BC decided to stop changing the clocks. So and he actually suggested not daylight saving time, but actually standard time is better for the human body. I know we're not going to get you to weigh in on the on the medical side of this, but historically decision making hasn't been based on health or science. So do you feel that there is a benefit of one over the other in general, or is it kind of pick your poison?
Yeah, I mean, I have a T-shirt that says, not that kind of doctor. So, medically, I'm not really qualified to comment on it. I do think that, the thing to remember with all of this is that, ultimately, everybody can comment on this from their particular area of expertise. So, if you're a sleep scientist or a doctor who studies those sorts of issues, you're going to say, well, the thing that's best is if you sink yourself completely to the sun, right? So you get up after the sun rises and you go to bed when the sun sets. And that's the thing that's going to be most natural. And, that's probably true in that narrow band. But, we have lots of other things going on, right? There are lots of other things that we value in life. And one of them is just the convenience of sort of having everybody on the same time, which already means that people who are, way to the east of a time zone or way to the west of a time zone are experiencing something very different than people who are smack in the middle, right? We have these large blocks, from PEI to, Ontario. You're pretending that all of those people have exactly the same time of day, when in fact there's a really wide range. Right, the time of sunrise and sunset varies quite a bit across the time zone. So the fact that we're already doing that, I think, kind of undercuts a lot of the medical arguments about, well, it would be better if you were on standard time or daylight savings time or whatever. Ultimately, I think it's a thing that we are free to choose in a way that gets us things that we like. It's hung on in large part because people really like having those long summer evenings, having it be, light outside until 9:30 at night allows you, the kids can go out and play, you can go watch a baseball game, whatever, and it's pleasant. And people really hate having the sun rise at 9 a.m. in the winter, which is what happens if you go on daylight saving time year round.
That's Chad Orzel, an associate professor of physics and astronomy at Union College in Schenectady, New York. He's also the author of A Brief History of Timekeeping, the Science of Marking Time from Stonehenge to Atomic Clocks. 8:27 right now, and we want to take you up north to Flin Flon. Well, actually, kind of Saskatchewan as well, actually, because a Manitoba team is the top of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, and it was another clean sweep. The Flin Flon Bombers won the Cantera Seeds Cup last night with a 2-0 win over the Yorkton Terriers, and the team hasn't won the championship since 1993, and the CBC was there for that win. Eric Westhaver, the CBC Manitoba's Flin Flon reporter, made the journey to Yorkton through a snowstorm in Saskatchewan. That was to Yorkton, Saskatchewan, to take in that game. And after a late night, he's made some time to recap his experience with us. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning. How's it going today?
Good. So just take us to the game last night. What were the vibes like, at the game and when the Flin Flon Bombers took that win?
They were very good. They were, by and large, the Bombers are a team that travels very well for fans. But this was a whole other level that I haven't personally come to expect to see. There were at least a few hundred, probably even more than a few hundred, honestly, fans wearing Bomber maroon and white, waving flags, making noise. And the team gave them all sorts of reasons to celebrate. They pulled ahead with 2 goals in the third period, ended up winning the game 2-0, finishing the series with a 4-0 sweep and winning the league championship, the Cantera Seeds Cup. As you mentioned earlier, it's the first time since 1993. It's been, for some of us, it's the first time we've ever seen the Bombers win anything. So it was a really big moment to to watch that as somebody who has been in Flin Flon for a very long time, been going to Bomber games for a long time, been covering the team for a long time in various different formats. To watch that actually happen after many years of trying and not quite getting there, it was quite an undertaking.
You spoke with a player actually after the game. What they have to say?
Yeah, so a lot of the players were very excited about this all, and one of them was assistant captain Pierce Yakimchuk. He's playing in his third season as a Bomber. It'll be his final season as a Bomber because such is the nature of junior hockey. There will come a point where you age out, where you get too old to play anymore. So this would have been his final SJHL playoff game. He went out with a bang. Here's what he had to say.
All the fans here, just seeing them, how far they drove down to watch us, it's the greatest feeling in the world. Just winning something for them and winning something for all of Flin Flon just puts me in shock. It makes me feel just honored to be a part of this and just the opportunity we're given to bring a championship to the town.
Amazing. I mean, I was at a game back in the fall, and I don't think people understand how raucous those games really get in Flin Flon and what the team means to the town. Just before I let you go here, the last 30 seconds here, Eric, what does this win mean for Flin Flon?
It means a lot because looking at Flin Flon in the last few years, it's been through a lot as a community. There was the shutdown of the local mine in 2022. Hundreds of jobs either eliminated or moved out of town to another mine the same company owned down the road. And then, of course, last summer, we hate talking about it, but we have to acknowledge it, the fires and the evacuations. And if you lived in Denier Beach, Saskatchewan, the devastation that happened there, 300 homes burned. This was not just hockey. This felt almost like catharsis. This felt like something big and important. This is a lot more than just a bunch of people with sticks whacking around the puck. There was a sense of community and a sense of pride involved for this for Flin Floners.
Big achievement for the town and the community, because I know a lot of people host those players. So, a lot of time and investment goes in from the community to these kind of hockey teams. So it is a big achievement. And congrats to Flin Flon. And thanks for heading all the way out to Yorkton. And safe travels home. I know the highways are not great today. So thanks, Eric.
They weren't great yesterday, but we'll make do. Thank you.
That is Eric Westhaver, our Flin Flon reporter for CBC Manitoba. Time now for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:32, it is 3 degrees. Lots of blue sky out there. Not a lot of heat, though. We're headed to a high of 11 today. It's going to be windy as well. The waiting game continues for communities along the Fisher River. That river is expected to crest today in Peguis First Nation. Flood preparations have been ongoing for the past 2 weeks. Chief Stan Bird says this spring feels different from other high water years.
There's a calm sense of confidence just knowing that a lot of the homes are protected. I don't see the chaos. No one has expressed any worry or frustration to me, so I think they're confident that the work that we've done will protect their homes. And if necessary, if an evacuation comes, it will be orderly.
At Fisher River Cree Nation, Chief David Crate says things are looking good for his community of 1,500 on-reserve residents.
Things are looking good. The weather, the major rain event that was predicted for the area has missed us, which is good. And if everything holds as is, then we should be all right.
Crate says 54 people who have medical needs have been identified for potential evacuation, but that would only happen if the road out of the community is threatened. Now, the Assiniboine River also continues to be under a flood warning. The province's latest hydrologic forecast says snow melt is passing through the system, raising water levels. Provincial staff are supporting preparations for potential flooding in a number of communities in the Parkland. A woman who fatally stabbed a 19-year-old after an argument in her Winnipeg home has been sentenced to 6 years. Benace Kennedy died in January 2024 after an argument with Anna Maria Hanska. Court heard the two had been drinking. Hanska kicked Kennedy out of her home, saying she would kill him if he returned. He did so minutes later, and Hanska stabbed him. Court heard she was then beaten and thrown from the home by others who were there. Hanska, now 48, was initially charged with second-degree murder. She pleaded down to manslaughter, in part because of her extreme intoxication at the time of the stabbing. Some Manitoba municipalities say police cost sharing with the federal government is unsustainable. Under the current Provincial Police Services Agreements Act, some municipalities pay 70% of policing costs, with the rest paid by Ottawa. At the Association of Manitoba Municipalities meeting in Brandon, the RM of Lac de Bonnie Reeve, Lauren Schinkel, says the current model is getting pricey.
But we only have one ratepayer. So it's come to the point of where that ratepayer can no longer afford that, and there has to be significant changes in how that provincial police service agreement is monitored and applied.
Current policing contracts expire in 2032, and negotiations are on the way. Policing contracts with Ottawa are negotiated every 20 years. Well, in Saskatchewan, a massive blizzard stalling over the northern part of that province, and some areas in the far north could see up to 70 centimeters of snow by tomorrow. Several highways are closed in the area. Travel not recommended. Saskatoon and Prince Albert are expecting another 20 centimeters of snow today. And the Ottawa Senators are now fighting their way for their lives in the playoffs following a 2-1 loss to Nikolai Ehlers and the Carolina Hurricanes.
Miller feeds Blake. They score! The Hurricanes respond and retake the lead.
Jackson Blake scoring the winning goal there for the Canes in the second period. Game 4 is tomorrow in the afternoon, a matinee on Saturday. You can find the latest news updated throughout your day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at our CBC News Desk. Sierra Sanders, quick look at the commute.
Yeah, commute's been a couple of stalled vehicles that we were hearing about, but my last thing I want to mention about an overpass closure. Northbound Pembina Highway overpass closure there. The overpass bridge over Abenogi-Mi'kmaq will be closed for construction from April 27th until October 31st.
Oh, wow.
So 2 northbound travel lanes will remain open by way of the median crossover onto the southbound overpass bridge. So expect delays there and a couple of sidewalks to be closed in that area.
Thank you, Abby.
While the central and the northern part of the province under its intense storm, blizzard and freezing rain, we're looking at up to 50 centimeters of snow. For the Flin Flon area, we're looking at about 15 centimeters of freezing rain coming your way, adding to some snowy conditions that will be coming there as well by the end of Saturday.
Thank you very much, Abby. Thank you to everyone who helped put together the show this week. Lots of hands went into making this radio show. Thank you to Marcy Marcusa. I'm filling in for her. I'm Corey Funk. Hope you all have a lovely weekend, whether you're up north in the snow or down south in the more spring-like conditions. Stay safe out there. The Current is next.